Do you know that every ATM you touch can become a money fountain if your words are charged with faith? The world calls it a machine. I call it a symbol. For money flows where words have gone before. Most people tap buttons. I speak law. And when I speak, supply answers. Let me show you how to speak so heaven deposits before you even withdraw. In this message, you will learn how to speak the living word that multiplies money by divine law. I will show you how to command the invisible supply that belongs to you by right of consciousness. You will discover why begging, hustling, or hoping cannot work, and how one declaration of truth outperforms years of effort. You will learn how to erase fear, speak with authority, and open your divine account, the account that never runs dry. By the end of this lesson, you will not only speak to an ATM with power, you will speak to life itself, and it will obey. I have met so many souls who say, "Florence, I've spoken the affirmations, but the money still hasn't come." They work hard, they pray hard, they repeat the words, but they forget the law behind the words. The law is simple. You cannot receive what you fear. When you speak with fear, you call for lack. When you speak with faith, you call for supply. The difference between the two is not effort, it is vibration. And once you know the vibration of truth, you will find that every ATM, every opportunity, every closed door begins to open in your favor. In this teaching, we will walk through the divine law that governs all money, the law of spoken supply. I will give you the exact affirmations I have used to turn empty pockets into overflowing accounts. You will hear real examples of men and women who spoke one line of truth and saw money appear through channels they never imagined. We will uncover the 3 words that unlock the invisible bank of heaven, and the one mistake that keeps most people broke though they pray daily. We will explore how to bless your money, speak to your wallet, and approach every ATM as an altar of faith, not of fear. And before we close, I will lead you in a declaration that will turn your spoken word into visible wealth. Remember, it is not the machine that gives, but the mind that commands. Most people believe money begins in a vault, a paycheck, or a business. They believe banks are the source, and people are the channels. But I learned long ago that belief is the very reason most never see lasting supply. Here's something most people completely miss. Money doesn't come from a person, it comes through a person. It doesn't live in the walls of an ATM, it lives in the mind of faith. When I first began teaching this law, I said, God is man's supply, and there is a supply for every demand. That isn't poetry, that's divine mathematics. Every true desire has its own invisible provision. If you long for increase, that longing is evidence that the supply already exists in the unseen. The problem is never with supply, it's with sight. Imagine standing at an ATM with your card in your hand, trembling, afraid there won't be enough in your account. That moment isn't about a balance, it's about belief. The machine is neutral. It mirrors the faith of the one who stands before it. The machine doesn't care who you are, it responds to what you believe. I remember a woman who came to me in great distress. It was a hot summer's day, and she said, "Florence, I have only $8 in the world." She was worn out, afraid, and certain that her life had come to a stop. I said to her, "Good, we will bless the $8, and it will multiply as Jesus multiplied the loaves and fishes." I told her that spirit was her source, not her purse. She looked at me as though I'd spoken madness, but she obeyed the law. She went home, repeated her word, and followed her intuition. Within days, she received thousands of dollars in a most miraculous fairy port. And from that moment on, she would tell everyone, tell people about the woman who had $8 and a hunch. That story isn't a fairy tale, it's a living demonstration of divine law. When you recognize that God is the source, the channels open. When you believe the channels are the source, they close. Now, why does this matter to you? Because until you know where your money truly comes from, you'll always live in fear of where it's going. You'll treat life like a paycheck that might stop instead of a fountain that never runs dry. So let me make it plain. Your income isn't your employer, your client, or your customer. Those are merely shadows cast by the light of your consciousness. The true supply is infinite, unchanging, and immediate. It doesn't arrive from the outside, it emerges from within. Say this aloud with me. God is my instant, constant, and abundant supply. What is mine comes to me easily and joyously, under grace, in perfect ways. Now pause. Feel those words sink in. Let them carry authority. Because the moment you believe that truth, you're no longer a beggar at life's door, you're the rightful heir of divine abundance. Think of it this way. The entire universe operates like a vast spiritual bank, Every loving thought you think, every word of truth you speak, is a deposit. Every fearful word, every complaint, is a withdrawal. You decide your balance by the words you send forth. And when you approach your next ATM, I want you to remember this. You are not standing before a machine, you are standing before a mirror. It reflects your faith, it reveals your belief, it multiplies your word. This truth alone, when understood, changes everything. Because once you see that supply is infinite and invisible, you will never fear lack again. So now that you've seen the invisible source behind every visible dollar, let's go a step deeper. If the true supply lives within, what is the currency it uses? Because, in the spiritual bank, we don't trade in coins, we trade in consciousness. Let me show you what that means. What I'm about to tell you may feel strange at first, because the world has trained you to think in terms of money made of metal and paper, of digits that appear or vanish in your account, but the real substance behind every coin and note is consciousness. The invisible thought behind the money is the real wealth, and that thought is what I call divine substance. You see, when I say money, I never mean the dollar or the coin. I mean the energy that the dollar represents, the living flow of supply that moves through the universe and answers to the vibration of belief. So, before you ever withdraw cash or sign a check or open your banking app, the true transaction has already taken place in your mind. The ATM in front of you is not an object of chance, it is a mirror that reflects the balance you hold in your invisible account. The question is not, do I have money, but what am I thinking about money? For your thoughts are the only currency heaven accepts. I often say that your vibration is your spiritual credit score, and your words are your signature on a divine check. You can write checks of fear and lack, or you can write checks of abundance and ease, but the bank of the universe will never reject your order. It fills whatever you send forth because the subconscious is a perfect servant, faithful to carry out every command, whether of wealth or want. When you speak in complaint, when you mutter about bills or delays or unfairness, you are writing checks of limitation. And the law must honor your word. But when you speak the word of faith, when you bless your finances, when you declare that every need is met even before it arises, you release a current of prosperity that no human condition can obstruct. The subconscious records the decree and moves heaven and earth to fulfill it. I remember once, a woman came to me worried about her rent, fearful that she'd be evicted by week's end. She kept saying, "Florence, I don't have the money." I stopped her gently and said, "Do you want more of that?" She frowned, not understanding. I told her, "Every time you repeat the lack, you sign another check for it. The universe keeps perfect books, and you are overdrawing your account with words of fear. Now stop repeating the overdraft. Speak only of supply." She hesitated, then began. "I have plenty of money for my rent. All that I need is now supplied." Her voice trembled at first, but I saw the shift. Her shoulders lifted. Her eyes brightened, and within 48 hours the rent was paid in full by a source she could not have planned. I told her, the rent was never about money, it was about thought. You paid with faith. That is how this invisible currency works. The value of your words depends entirely upon the energy you place behind them. A man may say, "I am prosperous," 1,000 times, but if he trembles with doubt while saying it, the words are empty shells with no gold inside. Another may whisper, "God is my supply," once, but if he says it with conviction, the heavens move to confirm it. Feeling is the electricity that powers the word. It lights the circuit of creation. You cannot separate thought, word, and emotion. Together they form the trinity of manifestation, the spiritual check, the signature, and the approval stamp. Without that living feeling of truth, even the most beautiful affirmation is only ink on paper. Now let me give you a picture to hold in your mind. Something simple and practical. Imagine you're standing before that ATM again. Your card is your faith, and your PIN is your word. If your card is weak, if you doubt that your account has anything in it, you can press all the buttons you like and the screen will still flash. Insufficient funds. But when you insert the card of faith and speak the number of faith, truth, when you say, "I have plenty," and feel the joy of having, the machine responds instantly because you've given it the correct code. The machine doesn't ask where the money will come from, it simply obeys the command. That is the law of consciousness. It does not reason, it only executes. Every day you are entering codes into the great spiritual system with your words, your tone, your thoughts. If you keep saying, "It's hard to make money," you are locking yourself out of your own account. If you say, "Money flows to me freely and joyously," you are releasing the funds already waiting under your name. The currency is consciousness. The interest rate is faith. The only transaction fee is fear. Pay the fee, and you lose part of the blessing. Eliminate the fear, and the flow becomes instant. I often laugh gently when people tell me, "Florence, I don't believe words can change money." I say to them, "What do you think the entire banking system runs on? Words and belief." A signature on a check is just a written word. A digital balance is nothing but a string of numbers on a screen. We already live by faith, but we call it finance. The difference is that spiritual law never fails and never fluctuates. The bank may collapse, but consciousness never goes bankrupt. So here's what I want you to remember. Money doesn't respond to labor alone, it responds to language. Speak with fear and you draw lack. Speak with faith and you draw wealth. The only reason one person lives in constant struggle while another moves in ease is that one has learned to issue orders of truth while the other keeps authorizing overdrafts of worry. You can change your financial destiny faster with your words than with any investment, because your word sets the vibration that magnetizes the investment itself. Let me leave you with a declaration to anchor this law. Say it aloud, slowly, and mean it. My words are divine currency. Every statement of truth I make deposits wealth into my life. I speak abundance. I feel abundance. I live abundance under grace and in perfect ways. Pause for a moment after you speak it. Let it resonate in the silence. That pause is the moment heaven stamps your affirmation as approved. Now, as we move forward, I want to open another door for you. You've learned that the true supply flows through you, and that your words are the currency of consciousness, but there's still one illusion to dissolve the illusion of lack. Because until you break that spell, even the richest deposits cannot reach you. So stay with me, and I'll show you how to shatter that illusion forever. Here's something that might surprise you. There is no such thing as lack in the universe. There is only the appearance of it, the mirage, the shadow cast by fear and disbelief. Lack has no substance of its own. It is simply the absence of recognition, the refusal to see what already is. When people come to me saying, "Florence, I don't have enough," I tell them softly, "You are standing in a room filled with gold, but the lights are off. The moment you turn on the light of faith, you will see that nothing was ever missing. It was only hidden from your sight." Poverty is a picture painted by the imagination, not a permanent fact in the divine design. The Father's house is filled with abundance, but most of his children are looking at the floor instead of the table. I remember once a student said to me, "I've prayed, I've tithed, I've affirmed, and still nothing happens." I asked her what she thought about when she wasn't praying. She paused and said, "I worry about the bills." I smiled and said, "Then your real prayer is worry. You are asking for more to worry about, and the law, being perfect, grants your request. You see, life doesn't hear what you say once, it hears what you mean always. It reads the vibration behind the words, and if that vibration is fear, it multiplies fear. If it is faith, it multiplies faith. The law cannot be fooled. It will mirror you exactly. So, when you speak of bills and burden, the universe echoes back more of the same. Not to punish you, but to reveal what you're creating. I want you to picture something simple. Imagine two people walking into the same ATM. One says silently, "I hope this works. I hope there's something left," and presses the buttons with trembling fingers. The other walks in smiling, thankful, calm, and says inwardly, "Infinite supply meets me here." The first walks away frustrated, the second walks away provided for. It's the same machine, the same day, the same possibility. The only difference is the picture they hold in consciousness. The first sees scarcity, the second sees sufficiency. The first withdraws fear, the second withdraws faith turned into form. The machine has no power of its own, it merely mirrors the mind that commands it. "In your word is your wand," I wrote. "Every plan my Father in heaven has not planned shall be dissolved and dissipated." That includes every belief in limitation, every mental habit of lack. The moment you declare that, you begin to dissolve the old pictures. You may not see the result immediately, because sometimes the fog of fear takes time to clear. But the declaration begins the cleansing. You cannot hold on to fear and faith at the same time any more than you can face east and west in one moment. The two vibrations cannot coexist. You must choose the higher frequency and refuse to be deceived by appearances. Now let me tell you a story from a woman who wrote to me years ago. She had been affirming prosperity for months, saying over and over, "God is my unfailing supply, and large sums of money come to me quickly, under grace, in perfect ways." But her conditions didn't change right away. Then one day she noticed that whenever she spoke the affirmation, she clenched her fists, as though bracing for disappointment. She realized that while her lips declared abundance, her body declared resistance. So, she began to relax. She said the words slowly, joyfully. with gratitude. Within a week, unexpected checks began to arrive. Not because the words were new, but because her inner picture had changed. She stopped demanding and started receiving. The law doesn't respond to repetition, it responds to realization. This is the great secret that dissolves lack. Stop fighting it. Every time you resist lack, you strengthen it. Every time you fear it, you feed it. You cannot starve something by staring at it. The moment you turn your attention to supply, lack begins to fade, for it has no life of its own. The illusion of poverty is sustained only by focus. The more you talk about not enough, the more real it feels, and the more real it feels, the more it expands. But when you shift your focus and say, I have everything I need, and more flows to me now, you open the window for the sunlight of supply to pour in. I often say to my students, do not take a trip to the land of lack, even for curiosity. Because once you travel there in thought, you may begin to build a home there in belief. And that home has many rooms: worry, envy, comparison, resentment, and none of them have windows. You live in the dark until you remember to step outside. The way out is always the same: gratitude. Gratitude is the great dissolver of lack. When you thank God for what you have, no matter how small, you change the lens through which you see the world. The moment you bless the smallest coin, you connect it to infinite gold. Blessing expands substance, complaint contracts it. Let's make this practical. Suppose you open your wallet and see a single dollar. Most people would sigh and say, this isn't enough. But the student of truth says, this dollar is blessed, and it multiplies as I speak. It is the seed of my abundance. Then that dollar becomes a symbol of faith, not fear. It becomes charged with expectancy, and by the magnetic law of consciousness, it draws more to itself. The same law that governs the seed governs your supply. One tiny affirmation of faith contains a harvest of plenty. Now, why does this matter so deeply? Because until you break the illusion of lack, every technique, every affirmation, every visualization remains powerless. You can't pour new wine into old bottles. You can't fill a heart still occupied by fear. You must first empty the consciousness of want, of comparison, of jealousy, of the lie that others have your good. Once you release those false beliefs, the true supply rushes in like air into a vacuum. The universe abhors emptiness. The moment you clear the room, abundance walks through the door. Say this with me now, slowly and deliberately. There is no lack in divine mind, therefore there is no lack in me. What is mine by divine right now appears in perfect ways. Every shadow of fear dissolves, and I see only supply. Pause after those words. Let them settle in your chest. That pause is your turning point, the instant you stop resisting and start receiving. Now, you may ask, Florence, what if I feel the fear rise again tomorrow? And I will tell you, fear is only the echo of an old idea leaving your system. Don't wrestle with it. Bless it and release it. Say, you have served your time, I no longer need you. Fear will fade like smoke in the wind when you no longer feed it. Keep your focus on truth, and the illusion will vanish. So remember this, lack cannot exist in the presence of recognition. The moment you recognize the abundance of God, the mirage disappears and the desert blooms. That is why Jesus said, give thanks before you break the bread. He didn't wait to see more loaves, he gave thanks for what he had, and the act of gratitude multiplied it. The law is the same today. Give thanks before you withdraw, praise before you receive, bless before you count. Then you will discover what I discovered long ago, that the ATM, the wallet, the purse, the world itself, becomes a fountain of supply when approached in faith. Now that we've dissolved the shadow and restored your vision of plenty, we can move into the next revelation. Because it's not enough to know that supply exists, you must also know how to speak it into form. The word, when spoken with authority, is the bridge between invisible wealth and visible manifestation. So come with me into the next part, and I will show you how to use your words to move money itself. Now that you've seen the invisible source of all supply and you've begun to break the illusion of lack, I want to lead you into the very heartbeat of manifestation, the word itself. Most people imagine that words are just sounds moving through the air, empty noises that come and go like wind, but I tell you, words are living things. They are substance. They are creative power condensed into vibration. Each time you speak, you strike a match in the invisible. Each syllable carries shape, color, and form in the unseen world. The ancients knew this truth, though they said it in symbols. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. That wasn't poetry, that was spiritual physics. Everything that exists, every coin, every dollar, Every opportunity began as a vibration, a word thought, a word spoken, a word believed. The universe itself is sound made visible, thought turned into thing, and you, being made in the image of the Creator, hold the same authority. When I first grasped this, I realized that my tongue was not an organ of speech alone, it was an instrument of creation. Man's word is his wand, I wrote, filled with magic and power, and I meant it literally. The spoken word is the bridge between the invisible and the visible, the unseen and the seen, the idea and the experience. To speak is to command. That is why careless language costs so much. People say, I'm broke, or I can't afford that, or money never lasts, and then wonder why those conditions multiply. The law does not differentiate between joking and judgment. The law doesn't recognize sarcasm. It simply obeys the vibration. Whatever you say, sincerely or not, becomes a decree that must return to you multiplied. Every idle word is a seed, and the harvest always comes home. I've seen this law at work more times than I can count. Once, a man told me he was sick and tired of his business. Those were his exact words, said in irritation and boredom. Within 6 months, the business collapsed, and he himself was physically sick and exhausted. He came to me for help, and I told him plainly, "You created it with your own tongue." He looked shocked, as though I had accused him of some great sin, but I reminded him of Scripture. By your words you are justified, and by your words you are condemned. Words don't merely describe your life, they design it. Every statement is a sketch drawn upon the canvas of your experience. And if you don't like the picture you're painting, it's time to choose a different color of thought and a truer line of speech. Let me give you an image you can hold. Think of your tongue as a 3D printer, endlessly sculpting matter from the material of spirit. You feed the printer the design of your belief, and it prints accordingly. If your model is fear, it prints limitation. If your design is faith, it prints abundance. The device doesn't decide, it simply follows the data it's given. That's why Jesus warned, "Let your yea be yea, and your nay be nay." Consistency is everything. When you speak truth one moment, and cancel it with complaint the next, you short-circuit your own demonstration. You send mixed signals to the universe, and the result is delay, confusion, half-manifested blessings that never quite take form. The word must be single, steady, clear. Here's a question for you to ask yourself. What words do I use most often when I speak about money, about health, about myself? If you listen to your own conversation for one day as though it were someone else's, would you hear prosperity or poverty, gratitude or grievance, faith or fear? Every word has a frequency, and that frequency attracts its likeness. Speak fear, and fear finds you. Speak faith, and faith rushes in to meet its echo. The law is impartial. It never sleeps, never forgets, never delays. It works by vibration, not by intention. A woman once came to me saying, "Florence, I've prayed for prosperity, but I keep losing what little I have." I asked her to repeat what she often said about her finances, and she laughed uneasily. "Oh, I always say, money slips through my fingers." I told her, "That's your decree, my dear. You're commanding the loss you fear." She looked stunned, but she understood. I gave her a new affirmation. I handle money wisely and with love. What I hold multiplies under grace in perfect ways. She began to use it daily, and within months she had not only paid her debts but started saving and investing with joy. Nothing magical happened to her bank. Something miraculous happened in her consciousness. Her word changed her world. That's what I mean when I say words are not sound, they are substance. They mold the invisible clay of the universe. Each phrase you speak imprints the subconscious with instructions, and the subconscious, being pure power without judgment, fulfills them in exact detail. You can't speak loss and expect gain. You can't speak fear and expect faith. The tongue is the steering wheel of destiny. Turn it toward truth, and your path becomes straight. Turn it toward fear, and you wander through the wilderness of lack. So, let's speak the right way. Say aloud with me, slowly, as though you were chiseling these words into stone. My words are mighty to bring forth. Every word I speak is filled with divine substance. I speak only truth, and truth now appears in my life as perfect prosperity. Now take a breath. Feel the vibration of that statement in your body. That resonance is the creative force moving through you. It doesn't matter whether you feel rich right now, the word itself contains the seed of wealth. If you continue to speak it with faith, the outer must conform to the inner. I want you to understand something deeper still. You don't need to shout your affirmations to make them work. You don't need to recite them 1,000 times as though God were deaf. The universe isn't moved by volume or repetition, it's moved by realization. Speak once, in full faith, and it is done. Jesus didn't repeat himself when he said, "Lazarus, come forth." He knew the law. He spoke, and the word became flesh. You are called to that same mastery. Now, perhaps you're thinking, "Florence, I've tried affirmations before and they didn't work." Then I will ask you, did you believe what you were saying, or were you testing it? Because the word cannot operate through doubt. The moment you speak while secretly thinking, "This probably won't work," you cancel your own order. You must speak as one who knows, not as one who hopes. Faith is certainty, dressed in calm assurance. And remember this, my friend, silence is also a word. To hold your tongue when tempted to speak fear is one of the highest forms of mastery. Each time you refuse to say "I can't" or "it's hard," you are performing an act of creation by omission. You are pruning your inner garden so that only good may grow. That restraint builds power. The one who speaks seldom but speaks truth is the one whose word carries thunder. So, from this day forward, guard your speech as you would guard a treasure. Speak only what you wish to see manifest. Let no idle word escape your lips. And when you feel anger, worry, or despair rising, pause before you speak and silently affirm, "Only the word of God goes forth from me, and it returns multiplied with good." The law of the spoken word is not a superstition, it is a science. It works whether you know it or not, just as gravity pulls whether you believe in it or not. Once you align your language with truth, life must align with you. And now that you understand the creative power of your speech, we can move into the next revelation. How to charge your words with faith so they carry not just sound but substance, not just intention but ignition. For a word without faith is a spark without fire, and faith is the electricity that turns the switch. Let me show you how to speak with the kind of conviction that moves mountains and money alike. What I'm about to tell you now separates the talkers from the demonstrators, the wishers from the knowers, the ones who hope for good from the ones who become it. You see, words without faith are empty shells. They have form but no life, sound but no spirit, motion but no meaning. They can be repeated 1,000 times and never move the smallest pebble in the invisible realm because faith is the electricity that powers the spoken word. Without that current, the line remains dead. And when I say faith, I don't mean blind optimism or strained effort. I mean the quiet, absolute certainty that what you have spoken is already done in divine mind. Faith doesn't beg, it declares. Faith doesn't plead, it possesses. Faith doesn't hope, it knows. When people first learn about affirmations, they often think the power lies in repetition, as if the universe could be convinced through volume or persistence. But the universe isn't moved by your mouth, it's moved by your vibration. If you say, "I am rich" 10,000 times but tremble inside, you're broadcasting fear at a higher frequency than your words. The law reads the energy, not the syllables. It's not the number of times you say a thing that matters, it's the depth of conviction with which you say it once. One word of truth, spoken in complete faith, carries more power than a lifetime of fearful chatter. That's why Jesus said, "When ye pray, believe ye have received." He didn't say, "Pray and then wait." He said, "Believe ye have." The moment the word leaves your lips, it is fulfilled in divine substance. The manifestation is simply the slow unfolding of what's already done. I remember a woman who came to me in tears one afternoon, her last $2 trembling in her hand like the last leaf on a winter branch. "Florence," she said, "I've been affirming prosperity, but nothing happens. I say it every day, but I still have nothing." I looked at her and said, "Then it's time to say it once with faith." She didn't understand at first, so I explained, "You've been saying it from the neck up. You must say it from the heart out." She nodded, quietly wiped her tears, and I told her to bless those $2, to speak over them as though they were the first drops of a river that could never run dry. She went home, laid the bills on her table, and said aloud, "God is my supply, I am rich in mind and affairs. These $2 are the seed of my wealth." She told me later that as she spoke, something shifted. She felt joy instead of desperation. That night, a friend she hadn't seen in years came to visit and offered her an opportunity that yielded $6,000 in profit within a month. Her wealth didn't come from the friend, it came from the word that was finally charged with faith. That's how this law works. The universe responds to the emotional charge behind the statement, not the syllables themselves. When you say "I can't" with fear, you create instantly. When you say "I can" with faith, you create instantly. The results differ only by the vibration. So how do you charge your words? How do you fill them with that invisible power that moves matter? By feeling the truth of them now, before the evidence appears. Feel as though you already have what you desire, not in some distant future, but right now in the eternal present where all creation takes place. Faith is the art of living in the done deal. I often use the analogy of an artist painting a masterpiece. When the painter begins, the canvas is blank, yet in her mind the vision is complete. She doesn't doubt the finished picture because it already exists within her imagination. Each brushstroke is merely the outer unfolding of what she already knows to be true. That's how faith works. When you speak your word, you must see the picture complete. Don't look at the blank canvas of your present condition. Look at the masterpiece of divine design already formed in the invisible. Paint with joy, not with doubt. Speak with confidence, not with hesitation. I tell my students to practice feeling wealth before they see it. When you say, "I am rich," let your heart swell as though it were already true. When you affirm, "All my needs are met," breathe as though you've just received a beautiful gift. That feeling of relief and gratitude is the magnetic charge that draws substance into form. If you say your words mechanically, they fall flat. But when you say them with living emotion, the words become clothed with power. They travel like arrows straight into the subconscious, which then sets every force of the universe in motion to prove you right. The subconscious is obedient but neutral. It doesn't question the truth of your statement, it simply fulfills it. It is up to you to provide the tone, the feeling, the conviction. Some people tell me, "Florence, I can't fake feeling rich when I'm broke," I say. Then don't fake it, faith it. Faith it until you feel it, for faith is stronger than sight. You are not lying when you declare abundance, you are telling the truth of spirit. The lie is in the appearance of lack, not in the declaration of plenty. You must remember that what you see with the outer eye is old news, the past printed on the screen of form. The truth lives in the unseen, waiting for you to claim it. Speak to that invisible truth, not to the visible evidence. Here's a practice I give to every student who struggles with fear. Before you speak any affirmation, pause and place your hand over your heart. Take one deep breath and imagine light glowing within you. Then say, "I believe." Say it again, "I believe." Feel it. Then speak your word. That one simple act aligns the conscious mind, the subconscious, and the superconscious. It's like plugging the cord of your desire into the socket of divine power. The current begins to flow, and your word becomes alive. Let me tell you another story. There was a man who had lost everything, his home, his work, his confidence. He told me, "Florence, I've tried everything, and nothing changes." I said, "Then stop trying. Start declaring." He didn't understand, so I explained that trying implies doubt, but declaring implies certainty. I gave him a single affirmation. My supply is endless, inexhaustible, and immediate. I told him to speak it once each morning and once before sleep, but to say it as though it were already visible, as though he were describing a fact, not pleading for a miracle. Within weeks, he found new employment that exceeded anything he had lost. When he came to see me again, he said, "I said it only twice a day, but I felt it every hour." That's the secret. Once the word is charged, it doesn't need repetition. It vibrates continuously. You see, faith is not noise. Faith is quiet authority. It's the stillness that comes from knowing you are one with the source. You don't have to shout at the mountain to move it. You simply need to know that the law is behind your whisper. Faith doesn't chase results, it attracts them. Faith never panics, never doubts, never bargains. It declares the end from the beginning and rests. So, I say, to you now, speak once, believe always. Say your word, feel it in every cell of your being, and then stop worrying about how it will come. That's not your concern. Infinite intelligence knows the how. Your task is to hold the vibration of completion until it becomes visible. Speak your prosperity once as a fact, not a wish. Say, "I am rich, I am free, I am in divine supply now." Then walk away as if you've just made a successful withdrawal from your spiritual bank. The funds are on their way. Here's a simple affirmation to seal this truth in your consciousness. My words are charged with the faith of God within me. I speak only what I wish to manifest, and my faith clothes every word with power. I rest in certainty, for what I have spoken is already done. Pause now. Let that truth settle over you like a warm mantle. That stillness you feel, that quiet certainty, is faith in action. That's the energy that moves money, heals conditions, opens doors. You don't need to see the result yet. The vibration is already working. Now that you've learned how to breathe life into your words, it's time to understand the language that ensures they move in harmony with divine order. There's a key phrase, a sacred password that keeps your word from being twisted by willpower or distorted by ego. It's a phrase that unlocks miracles and keeps you aligned with grace. And in the next part, I'll share that secret language, the language of divine right. There is a certain vibration in words that opens the gates of heaven, and that vibration is grace. The moment you speak under grace and in perfect ways, you align your word with divine order, and all struggle ceases. People imagine that manifestation requires force, that you must push or pull or twist life into cooperation, but I have learned that what is truly yours moves toward you the moment you speak the word under grace. These are not filler words. They are a sacred password, a seal of protection. When I say something is coming to me under grace, I am acknowledging that the outcome will be perfect, peaceful, and harmless to all concerned. I am saying, infinite intelligence, arrange this in the right way, through the right channels, at the right time. And when I add in perfect ways, I surrender the details to divine mind. Those phrases prevent me from forcing the law through personal will. They remove tension from the command and replace it with certainty. Most people want what they want in the way they want it, and that is where their demonstrations collapse. They mistake stubborn desire for faith and personal control for power. But true power flows only through surrender. To insist on a specific channel or a specific person is to chain the universe to your limited idea. When you release the how and the who, you give the law room to work. It will always find the swiftest, most harmonious path. That's what under grace and in perfect ways means. It means I refuse to outline. I refuse to dictate the plan. I trust divine intelligence to deliver my good in ways that exceed my imagination. I remember the story of a woman who was deeply in love with a man. Let's call him A. B. She wanted to marry him, but he did not share her affection. She came to me heartbroken and said, "Florence, help me make him love me." I told her, "My dear, we cannot use the law to bend another's will. That would not be under grace." I gave her a new affirmation instead. I am now in harmonious relationship with the man who is mine by divine right. If AB is the right man, we cannot be kept apart. If not, I will receive his equivalent. She hesitated, but she trusted me. She began repeating the statement daily, not with effort, but with calm assurance. Months later, she met another man, one who matched her completely, and she said, "Florence, now I understand. I thought I wanted A, B, but what I really desired was love, companionship, understanding, and that's exactly what I received." That is the language of divine right at work. It dissolves the limited desire and brings the true good. When you say, under grace and in perfect ways, you are telling the universe, deliver this or something better. It's the ultimate act of faith, because it leaves space for miracles. You are no longer dictating the outcome. You are aligning with the highest pattern. It's like sailing, you adjust your sails to the wind, but you don't control the wind. You cooperate with the law, and in return, the law carries you farther and faster than your oars ever could. Many people ruin their demonstrations because they use will instead of word. They think they must make something happen. They say, "I'm manifesting this job," or "I'm attracting this person," as if they were pulling strings on a puppet. That is not spiritual law. That is human effort disguised as mysticism. The truth is, what belongs to you by divine right cannot be taken or delayed, and what doesn't belong to you cannot be held by any force on earth. When you speak under grace, you release the tension of will and invite the flow of ease. You stop wrestling with appearances and begin to trust timing. I often compare it to gardening. You plant the seed of your word, you water it with faith, and then you let the Son of divine order do the rest. You don't dig up the soil every day to see if the seed is sprouting. That only delays growth. You bless it and leave it. Under grace is that leaving. It's the spiritual rest that follows the spoken decree. It's saying, "I've done my part. Now I trust the law to do its part." Here's what's miraculous. When you begin to live and speak under grace, you'll notice that even the things you didn't ask for start to unfold perfectly. Old problems untangle themselves. Opportunities appear out of nowhere. You realize you've been carried all along by a current that knows exactly where to take you. That's why I tell my students, never speak a word of truth without adding the seal of grace. It's the difference between creating through ego and creating through God. Let's make this practical. Suppose you're seeking a new job or a financial breakthrough. Instead of saying, "I must get this position" or "I need that contract," speak like this: Divine intelligence now opens the way for my right position, under grace, in perfect ways. The perfect opportunity is now mine, and nothing can keep it from me. Then let it go. Don't chase the outcome, don't outline the details. Simply hold the feeling of peace that comes from knowing the universe has heard you. If the job you imagined is truly yours, it will come easily. If it's not, something better will appear. Either way, you win, because you've placed your trust in divine order. I can't tell you how many times I've seen this principle save people from disappointment. Once, a woman prayed fervently for a certain apartment in New York City. She was determined that it was the perfect home for her. But when the landlord gave it to someone else, she was furious and heartbroken. I reminded her of her affirmation she had said under grace. I told her to trust that this refusal was part of the perfection. 2 weeks later, a fire destroyed that very building. She wept with gratitude, saying, I would have lost everything if I had forced my will. That's what grace does. It protects you from your own short-sighted desires. When you speak under grace, you can rest, because you know no harm can come, no mistake can stand, and no door can close against your highest good. Your word becomes bulletproof. Even if appearances seem delayed or reversed, you can smile and say, this too is part of the perfect unfolding. That attitude of peace magnetizes good faster than any struggle. Let's speak a decree together right now to set this law in motion. Infinite Spirit, open the way for my immediate and permanent supply, under grace and in perfect ways. Nothing can be withheld from me, for what is mine by divine right now appears in perfect form. Say those words slowly, not as a wish but as a statement of truth. Imagine them traveling into the ethers, wrapped in light, already fulfilled. That is what it means to speak under grace. Now, you might ask, Florence, does this mean I never take action? Not at all. It means that when action is required, it will arise effortlessly, guided by intuition, free of strain. When you're under grace, you act with divine timing. You don't chase, you're led. You don't push, you're carried. You don't force, you flow. So, remember this. Words of faith create, but words of grace perfect. Without grace, creation becomes chaos. With grace, creation becomes peace. Speak your word boldly, but always add the seal of divine right, and you will walk in miracles that arrive without struggle and remain without sorrow. And now that you know how to align your words with the law of divine right, I want to take you one step further to teach you how to speak not only to the unseen, but to the visible substance of money itself. Because money, like all energy, is alive, and when you learn to bless it and talk to it as a friend, it will begin to serve you as one. Let's walk together into that revelation. Most people speak of money as if it were a cold, lifeless object, a stack of paper, a row of numbers on a screen, something inert that must be chased, controlled, or worried about. But I tell you, money is not dead matter, it is living energy. It is the visible expression of invisible substance, a servant of divine law, and like all servants of spirit, it responds perfectly to the tone of its master's voice. It hears you when you bless it, it retreats when you curse it, it multiplies when you appreciate it, and it vanishes when you despise it. The moment you begin to speak to money as a living, responsive power instead of a problem to be solved, you shift the entire vibration of your financial life. I remember once when a student came to me utterly discouraged. Florence, she said, I can't keep any of the money I earn. It disappears no matter what I do. I smiled and asked, how do you speak to it? She laughed nervously and said, I don't speak to money. I told her, oh yes you do. You speak every time you sigh about bills, every time you think it's not enough, every time you say, I never have luck with money. That is your conversation with it, and it's not a friendly one. She looked startled, as though the thought had never occurred to her. I gave her a new assignment. I said, every night before you sleep, take one bill, hold it in your hands, and say aloud, I bless this money. It is God's substance in visible form, and it now multiplies under grace in perfect ways. She did exactly as I told her. Within 2 weeks, new clients appeared, old debts were repaid, and she said, Florence, I feel like my money finally likes me. And I said, it does, because you've begun to treat it as what it truly is, living energy. Money carries the vibration you project onto it. When you fear it, it flees. When you respect it, it returns. When you clutch it in panic, it slips through your fingers. When you release it in faith, it comes back tenfold. The universe is one vast circulatory system, and money is one of the ways divine substance flows. To block that flow, through resentment, judgment, or greed, is to block your own supply. I have said often, I bless the money I have and see it multiplying under grace. That simple phrase is a magnet for prosperity because it carries no resistance. It doesn't come from anxiety, it comes from appreciation. When you bless what you have, you magnetize more. When you curse what you have, you repel it. The secret is to treat money as sacred, to see it as God in motion. Just as the body of water is not the ocean itself, but still one with it, every coin, every check, every digital deposit is a ripple of divine abundance moving toward you. When you give, you're not losing. You're sending energy into circulation. When you receive, you're not taking. You're allowing the current to return. And because this law never ceases, there is never truly not enough. There is only flow and faith or fear and friction. I tell my students to make their wallets and purses little altars of gratitude. Never throw money in carelessly. Never leave it crumpled or dirty. Arrange it neatly, bless it often, and speak kindly to it. Each time you pay for something, silently affirm, "This money blesses all it touches and returns to me multiplied." Each time you receive money, say, "Thank you, Infinite Spirit. I recognize you in this form." You will be astonished at how quickly that reverent attitude transforms your experience. You will begin to notice new channels of income, surprising gifts, discounts, opportunities, and so-called coincidences that all point to one truth: money loves those who love it rightly. And this is important. Loving money rightly does not mean worshiping it. It means recognizing it as divine energy, not as an idol. The world's greatest confusion is believing money is either evil or ultimate. It is neither. It is neutral power, shaped by the consciousness of the one who handles it. If you see it as evil, it will behave accordingly and slip from your hands. If you see it as good, it will serve you, not rule you. The love of money as material alone is bondage. The love of money as spiritual substance is freedom. The first enslaves, the second liberates. There was a man I knew who despised wealth. He often said, "Rich people are greedy." He struggled for years, living in constant lack. I told him, "You've cursed the very energy you seek to attract. How can it come to you when you've made it unwelcome?" He was offended at first, but he pondered my words. Eventually, he began to bless the wealth of others, to see prosperity as good for all. Slowly, his own conditions changed. He said one day, "Florence, I finally made peace with money." And I replied, "That peace was worth more than any fortune, because now the fortune can find you. The next time you stand before an ATM, I want you to see it differently. Don't think of it as a cold machine dispensing dollars. See it as a living altar of exchange, a moment of communion between you and divine supply. Before you press a single button, bless it. Say inwardly, 'This ATM is one of God's channels of abundance. It cannot fail me because God cannot fail.' Feel gratitude even before you see the balance. And when the money appears, smile, because you've just witnessed divine substance taking form. Do not let the transaction be mechanical, let it be sacred. Every withdrawal is proof that the invisible bank of heaven is working through the visible bank of earth. I can almost hear someone saying, "Florence, isn't that a bit much, talking to my wallet? Blessing an ATM?" And I smile, because I know that the one who laughs at these things is the one still counting pennies. I never argue with results. When you begin to treat every exchange as holy, you will discover that life itself becomes a series of miracles in motion. The cashier smiles at you, the bills balance themselves, unexpected credits appear, lost money returns, and all because you've aligned yourself with the consciousness of abundance. So here's what I want you to practice. Every morning, before you leave your home, take your wallet or purse in your hand and say, "You are full of God's substance. You are a divine reservoir of supply, and you never run dry." Say it with feeling, with reverence, with gratitude. Let it be your first conversation of the day, and watch how your day changes. And then, when you pay for something, bless that money again and bless the one receiving it. Say silently, "I send this forth with love, and it returns to me multiplied." That one act dissolves all fear of spending and all worry of loss. You'll find that what you give comes back, often from places you could never have imagined. Because remember, the world is your mirror, and the ATM, the wallet, the checkbook, they all reflect your state of mind. Money is not your enemy, it's your student. It listens to the tone of your teacher. Speak to it with authority, but also with love. It is eager to obey, for it was created to serve you, not to master you. So speak kindly, bless often, give freely, and you will find that money becomes a faithful companion rather than a fleeing shadow. Let's seal this lesson with a spoken word of power. I bless the money I have and see it multiplying under grace in perfect ways. Every dollar I spend returns to me in divine increase. I am grateful for the living energy of money, which flows to me, through me, and back to me endlessly. Say those words as you breathe slowly. Feel the vibration of truth ripple through you. The flow has already begun. Now that you understand how to speak to money as a living, responsive friend, it's time to learn the deeper laws that govern this flow, the spiritual principles that shape when, how, and why your good arrives. Because even a blessed stream must obey the riverbed of law, and when you know those laws, your prosperity becomes not a miracle but a method. Let us move forward and uncover the laws that govern supply itself. Here's a law so simple that most people overlook it, yet it is one of the most powerful keys to freedom that the soul can ever hold. The law of substitution declares that no idea can be removed from consciousness except by replacing it with another. You cannot simply fight a thought, you must replace it. You cannot destroy a picture of fear. By staring at it, you must paint over it with a picture of faith. The mind is not a vacuum, it cannot be left empty. Whatever you cast out must be immediately replaced with its divine opposite, or the old condition will rush back, clothed in new form. This is why people who struggle against problems seem to live in a never-ending circle of the same experiences. They cast out the symptom, but keep the belief that gave it birth. The law of substitution ends that cycle. When you learn to replace every negative idea with a positive declaration of truth, the old energy dissolves, the old pattern breaks, and your life becomes a constant renewal. When I first understood this law, I realized that most of humanity spends its days reinforcing the very conditions it wants to escape. People say, "I don't want to be poor," and the mind hears only poor. They say, "I don't want to lose this job," and the law hears lose this job. The subconscious does not understand negation. It only understands command. Whatever you hold in thought expands. Whatever picture you energize becomes flesh. The only way to dissolve the wrong picture is to give the mind a new one so luminous, so convincing, that the old fades like mist at sunrise. I often use the story of the woman who wanted to marry a man named A. B. to illustrate this law, for it shows perfectly how substitution works. She was fixed upon him, convinced that her happiness depended on this one person. I told her, "My dear, you are trying to force your good through a single channel. You must open the way for something higher." I gave her this statement: I am now in harmonious relationship with the man who is mine by divine right. If A. B. is the right man, nothing can keep us apart. If not, I will receive his equivalent. She hesitated, because she thought the word equivalent meant loss. But I told her, it means something better, something exactly suited to you by divine intelligence. She finally released her grasp and began affirming the new truth. The law responded instantly. She met another man who embodied every quality she desired and more, and she later told me, A. B. was only the letter of my wish. This man is the spirit of it. She had substituted the limited personal will for divine right, and her world rearranged itself to match the higher picture. That is how the law of substitution operates in every area of life. If you are experiencing lack, stop saying, "I don't have enough." Instead, declare, "Infinite supply is now manifesting through every channel of my life." If you are lonely, do not affirm, "I have no friends." Say, "I am now surrounded by loving, joyous companionship." If you are ill, don't repeat, "I'm sick," but affirm, "The life of God now fills every cell of my body with radiant health." The instant you replace the false with the true, the subconscious begins to build the new pattern. It doesn't argue, it doesn't delay. It simply obeys. I remember once meeting a man who had lost his position and kept saying, "I've been thrown out." I told him, "You have thrown yourself out by affirming separation. Say instead, there is no loss in divine mind. What's mine by divine right is immediately given me." He looked doubtful, but repeated it anyway. Within days, he was offered another position at a higher salary. That is substitution at work. You can never lose anything that is truly yours by divine right, and if something leaves, it only means a better form is on its way. The universe abhors a vacuum. When one door closes, another must open, but you must stand in faith long enough to see it. People often think they must first tear down the old belief before they can build the new, but that is not how law functions. You don't fight darkness, you turn on the light. You don't fight fear, you replace it with faith. You don't resist hate, you substitute love. The moment you introduce the higher vibration, the lower fades out of existence, for the two cannot occupy the same space. I like to think of it as tuning a radio. If a station is playing a song you dislike, you don't break the radio, you change the frequency. The new station cancels the old one because you've shifted resonance. Your mind is exactly the same. Change the frequency of your thoughts, and the song of your life changes automatically. Now, let's make this living and practical. If you receive a bill that seems impossible to pay, don't curse it or hide it in a drawer. Hold it in your hands and say, "This bill represents opportunity. Divine supply now meets it in full, under grace and in perfect ways." You have just substituted gratitude for fear, faith for worry, and abundance for lack. The bill may look the same on paper, but in the invisible, it has already been paid. The vibration of payment is moving toward you. It may come as an unexpected refund, a gift, a new source of income, or even the cancellation of the debt itself. The how is not your concern. Your only work is to maintain the new pattern. Sometimes people ask me, "But Florence, what if my fear returns?" And I answer, "Then substitute again." Every time an old thought knocks at your door, don't invite it in for tea. Replace it with truth. If worry whispers, "You'll fail," answer immediately, "Success is assured, for I walk in divine order." If guilt says, "You don't deserve prosperity," reply, "God is my supply, and divine justice gives me all that is mine by right." The practice may feel mechanical at first, but soon it becomes automatic. The new habit of thought becomes your natural state, and what was once effort turns into ease. I often liken this law to weeding a garden. You don't curse the weeds, you simply plant stronger flowers. The rich soil of consciousness will always feed whatever you sow, so why plant thorns when you can plant roses? Every affirmation of truth is a seed of divine fragrance. Water it with gratitude, bathe it in sunlight of faith, and it will crowd out the weeds of fear until nothing but beauty remains. Let's affirm together now, slowly and deeply. Every false idea is now replaced by truth. Fear is replaced by faith. Lack is replaced by abundance. Delay is replaced by divine timing. The law of substitution now works perfectly in my mind and affairs, and my world is made new. Pause a moment and feel the quiet relief of that statement. There's a peace that comes when you stop wrestling with shadows and begin working with substance. You don't have to fix the old. You only have to live in the new. The past dissolves of its own accord when the present is filled with truth. This law is your tool for instant transformation. The next time you catch yourself speaking limitation, stop and substitute immediately. Do not condemn yourself, simply correct. The law is mechanical, it has no memory of mistakes. The moment you affirm truth, it obeys as if you had never erred. That is the mercy built into divine principle. So now that you understand the power of substitution, you can stop fighting appearances and start transmuting them. For when you substitute love for resentment, peace for conflict, faith for fear, you are no longer a victim of circumstance. You are the deliberate creator of harmony. And now that you know how to replace darkness with light, let us move into another law, one equally essential to peace and prosperity, the law of non-resistance, the art of yielding so completely to divine flow that nothing and no one can oppose you. There is a quiet power that moves through the universe, and those who learn to move with it live in peace, while those who fight against it wear themselves to exhaustion. This power is called the law of non-resistance. It is the principle of yielding, not in weakness, but in strength, of flowing, not fighting, of bending like the reed instead of breaking like the oak. I have seen entire lives transformed when this law is understood. For what you resist, you give energy to, and what you bless, you release. The harder you push against a problem, the more deeply you anchor it. The moment you stop struggling, the moment you say, "I let go and let God," the heavy door swings open of its own accord. This law is so beautifully illustrated in nature that you only need to watch a river to see it in action. The river never argues with the rocks in its path. It doesn't stop and shout, "You are in my way." It simply flows around them, patient, unbothered, certain of its destination. And yet, by doing nothing but moving in its own rhythm, the river carves canyons, smooths mountains, and changes landscapes. That is the power of non-resistance. When you cease to fight, you align yourself with a force greater than effort, a wisdom that knows how to find the easiest, most graceful route to fulfillment. Resistance comes from fear, and fear always tightens the flow. The moment you let go, you allow the current of spirit to carry you exactly where you need to be. I remember once, a man came to me with a heavy heart. He said, "Florence, I've been treated unjustly at work. They've passed me over for promotion, and I'm furious." I could see the tension in his face, the bitterness forming a wall around him. I told him gently, You must stop resisting this situation. You must bless it, release it, and see it as part of your divine unfolding, he protested. But if I don't fight, they'll win. I smiled and said, my dear, when you resist, you make them your master. When you bless, you make God your master. That night, he began to repeat the words I gave him. I do not resist this situation. I put it in the hands of infinite love and wisdom. Let the divine plan unfold. Within weeks, the entire office reorganized, and he was offered a position higher than the one he had fought for. He told me, the moment I stopped fighting, everything changed. I said, of course. He stepped aside and let God act. The law of non-resistance is one of the highest forms of faith because it asks you to trust before you see. It asks you to stop pushing and start allowing. Most people confuse control with strength, but control is the mask of fear. Real strength is serenity. Real power is calmness. When Jesus said, resist not evil, he didn't mean tolerate wrongdoing. He meant refuse to energize it with your attention. The moment you fight evil, you strengthen it because you agree that it has power. When you turn your gaze away and affirm divine order, the shadow dissolves for lack of recognition. Let me tell you something that might surprise you. Even debt, delay, or disease can be transformed through non-resistance. When you curse a debt, you glue it to yourself. When you bless it, you dissolve it. If you receive a bill and grow angry, you are pushing against it. You are saying, you have power over me. But when you say, I bless this bill and see it paid in full by divine supply, you release the resistance, and the law of supply rushes in to balance it. The bill may have seemed like an enemy, but it was only a messenger, asking you to align your vibration. The moment you stop resenting it, the lesson ends. A woman once told me she was tormented by a neighbor who constantly criticized and harassed her. She said, Florence, I can't stand it. I pray for patience, but I'm angry every day. I said, stop asking for patience and start blessing the neighbor. Say, I bless this person with love and release her to her highest good. She looked puzzled but promised to try. A few days later, she told me, astonished, Florence, she moved away. She said she'd been offered a better apartment unexpectedly. That's how non-resistance works. You don't have to chase your enemies, you simply stop making them necessary to your story. Love releases, and life rearranges itself. Non-resistance is not passivity. It's the most dynamic form of action there is, because it moves in alignment with divine intelligence. It is the action of spirit, not of strain. When you are non-resistant, your intuition sharpens, your path clears, and opportunities arise naturally. You find yourself in the right place at the right time without effort. Doors open before you knock, because you are no longer blocking them with your tension. The moment you loosen your grip, the universe can deliver what you've been clinging too tightly to receive. Think of your desires as a bird in your hand. If you squeeze it with fear, it dies. If you hold it gently, it breathes, it sings, it flies, and it comes back to you freely. That's the secret. Non-resistance keeps the life in your good. It allows the natural rhythm of give and receive to flow unhindered. When you say, thy will be done, you're not giving up your good, you're agreeing with the higher version of it. So when the next challenge arises, an argument, a delay, an unexpected turn, don't meet it with tension. Smile inwardly and say, I don't resist this. It's another opportunity for grace. Take a deep breath, release the need to control, and affirm, I do not resist, I am in divine flow. Infinite love now handles this in perfect ways. Say it softly, without strain, you'll feel the energy shift immediately. What seemed like opposition begins to fade. What looked like trouble reveals itself as transformation. You might be asking, Florence, how can I not resist when someone wrongs me? And I'll tell you, non-resistance doesn't mean you approve of the wrong. It means you refuse to keep carrying it. When you forgive, you're not excusing the act. You're cutting the rope that ties you to it. Resistance is bondage. Release is freedom. You can't rise while dragging your grievances behind you. Bless those who oppose you because they're showing you where you still resist. The moment you let go, you ascend beyond their reach. I once had a student who was furious after losing a lawsuit. She said, I'll never forgive them, Florence. They cheated me. I told her, you'll never be free until you bless them. She thought I was mad, but weeks later she came back smiling. I bless them every day, she said, and today I received an inheritance I never expected. It's twice what I lost. The law balanced itself the moment she became non-resistant. The energy that had been locked in resentment was released into prosperity. That is how perfectly the law works. You don't need revenge. you need release. You don't need to win, you need to align. Life itself is self-correcting when you stop fighting it. So, the next time you feel tempted to struggle, pause and say, I let this go. I bless it into the hands of divine love. Then do nothing but trust. You'll see that the flow of spirit never needed your force, only your permission. Let's affirm this truth together. I now release every thought of opposition. Nothing and no one stands against me. For God is my defense and my deliverer. I do not resist. I rest in divine order, and every situation is resolved in peace. Take a long breath and let that word sink deep into your being. Feel the tension leaving your shoulders, the peace descending upon your mind. You have entered the flow of non-resistance. The river of life carries you forward easily, freely, joyfully. And now that you have learned to yield instead of wrestle, to bless instead of battle, you are ready for the next great principle of manifestation, the law of subconscious agreement. For once you stop resisting, you must learn to agree inwardly, to bring your heart and mind into perfect union, so that every word you speak is a chord of harmony that the universe cannot ignore. There is a still deeper law that governs the creative process of manifestation, a law so simple that most people miss it entirely because they live divided within themselves. This is the law of subconscious agreement, and it states that nothing can manifest in your outer world until there is agreement in your inner one. Every demonstration of health, wealth, love, or success must be conceived first by a union between your conscious word and your subconscious belief. The conscious mind is the speaker, the architect, the one who designs and declares. The subconscious mind is the builder, the faithful servant, the one who follows instruction without question or pause. When these two agree, miracles happen quickly and silently. But when they contradict each other, the result is confusion, delay, or apparent failure. It is written, if two of you shall agree on earth, it shall be done. Most people think that means two people agreeing together in prayer, but the deeper meaning is the agreement between your outer and inner self, your intellect and your intuition, your mind and your heart, your words and your feelings. I have met so many who speak prosperity yet think poverty, who declare health yet feel fear, who claim peace yet secretly cherish grievance. They pray one thing and expect another, and then wonder why nothing happens. The universe is not withholding good from them, it is waiting for their agreement. The law cannot move while they are double-minded. A divided house cannot stand. You must speak the word and then feel the truth of it until every cell in your being sings the same note. Only then is there harmony in the unseen, and harmony in the unseen must reproduce itself in the seen. I remember a man who once told me, Florence, I've been affirming for $50,000 for months, but nothing changes. I asked him, when you say the words, do you feel rich or do you feel lack? He laughed uneasily and said, honestly, I feel ridiculous. I said, then that's your true affirmation. The law hears the feeling, not the phrase. I gave him a new practice. I said, before you speak, close your eyes and imagine what it would feel like to have already received it. Feel the gratitude, the relief, the joy. Let that feeling fill you and then say the words. He did as I instructed, and soon the vibration shifted. Within a few weeks, an investment he had written off as lost suddenly paid out almost exactly $50,000. He told me, I didn't just say it this time, I knew it. That knowing was the agreement. The conscious mind and the subconscious mind are like two musicians playing the same instrument. If they play different notes, the sound is harsh and unrecognizable. But when they strike the same chord, the harmony is irresistible, and the universe becomes their orchestra. Every prayer must reach this state of resonance. It is not repetition that moves God, it is agreement. The conscious says, I speak prosperity, and the subconscious replies, yes, I believe it. The moment that happens, the demonstration is inevitable. Now, how do you bring these two into alignment? Through repetition charged with emotion, through visualization, through silence, and above all, through faith in the unseen. When the conscious mind declares truth, the subconscious sometimes hesitates because it's been trained by years of fear. It whispers, this isn't real. But if you persist gently, not by force, but by calm assurance, the deeper self begins to believe. It is like teaching a child. You do not scold the subconscious, you reassure it. You say, be still, all is well, this good is safe, this good is mine. Speak lovingly to it, for it responds to tone more than to argument. I tell my students to treat their subconscious as a sacred garden. Every word you speak is a seed. The soil does not judge what is planted, it will grow thorns or roses with equal devotion. Your task is to sow deliberately, to choose only seeds of truth, beauty, and abundance. When doubt appears, don't attack it, plant faith beside it. The new growth will eventually crowd out the old weeds. That's how agreement forms, not through war, but through replacement. There is a beautiful inner stillness that comes when you've reached this harmony. You no longer need to watch the mailbox, check the balance, or wonder when the phone will ring. You know your word is working because your feelings are steady, peaceful, confident. That peace is the proof. The outer result will appear naturally because the inner work is done. I call this the silence before the demonstration, the sacred pause where heaven is building your miracle. When you've reached agreement, you don't need to force or chase. You rest, and the law fulfills itself. Sometimes people tell me, "Florence, I can't believe it. It feels impossible." And I say, then stop trying to believe it. Believe instead in the one who can. Your personal belief may waver, but divine intelligence never does. When your faith feels weak, shift your focus from self to source. Say, "It's not my faith that does this, it's the faith of God within me that makes all things possible." That acknowledgement brings the conscious mind into humility and the subconscious into trust. They unite in surrender to a power greater than both, and that union creates miracles. Let me give you another example. A woman came to me, wanting a home. She had spoken affirmations for months. "I have my perfect home. It's mine by divine right." Yet nothing happened. I said to her, "Do you truly feel at home anywhere?" She paused, realizing that her life had been full of movement and instability. She said, "No, Florence, I've never felt settled." I told her, "Then your words say one thing, but your heart says another. You must first feel at home within yourself before the world can mirror it." She began a simple affirmation: "I am at peace where I am, and my perfect home now finds me." Within a few weeks, she was offered a house that fit her vision in every way. Agreement had been reached, not by effort, but by alignment. So often, we speak words of truth, but then undermine them with unspoken words of fear. We say, "I'm healthy," but we check for symptoms. We say, "I'm prosperous," but we dread the bills. These contradictions cancel the decree. You cannot affirm and doubt simultaneously. The stronger vibration always wins, and fear is often more practiced. That's why consistency is essential. Train your inner voice to match your outer declaration. If your heart and mind ever disagree, stop and reconcile them before you proceed. Say, "Peace, be still. God's law is now established in me." That small moment of centering restores agreement. Let me offer you a way to test if your inner agreement has been reached. Speak your affirmation aloud and notice your body's response. If you feel relief, peace, or quiet joy, agreement is present. If you feel tension, disbelief, or strain, you're still divided. Do not scold yourself. Simply repeat the word gently until it feels natural. The goal is not to convince but to remember. Truth always feels like coming home. Agreement is the secret behind every answered prayer. It is why two people can pray for the same thing, and only one receives it, the one who agrees inwardly, who feels the prayer as fulfilled. The other may speak beautifully, but if doubt whispers underneath, the law cannot act. The words of power must be unanimous within you. Now, let's declare this truth together to seal it into consciousness. There is no division in me. My mind and heart are now one in truth. What I speak, I feel. What I feel, I believe. What I believe, I receive. The law of agreement now operates perfectly, and all that is mine by divine right manifests under grace in perfect ways. Take a breath and notice the calm that follows. That peace is agreement. That certainty is creation already accomplished. You have just aligned your inner and outer self, and the universe must now respond. And now that you understand this sacred harmony, we move into the next law, the law of divine timing, where you will learn that once the word is spoken and the agreement is made, you must also know when to release it. For everything in the universe unfolds not too soon, not too late, but in the exact moment of perfect grace. There is a perfect rhythm that governs the movement of all things, a sacred pulse beneath the surface of life, steady and sure, unseen yet unfailing. I call it the law of divine timing. It is the assurance that everything unfolds at the precise moment of its highest good. Not a breath too early, not a heartbeat too late. When you begin to understand this law, the strain of waiting dissolves, impatience gives way to peace, and you no longer live by the calendar or the clock but by the heartbeat of God. You stop rushing because you realize that what is truly yours cannot be delayed, and what is not yours cannot be made to arrive. In divine mind, every seed has its appointed season, and that season cannot be altered by human anxiety. Faith is not measured by how fast your prayer is answered. Faith is measured by your peace while you wait. I have seen so many lose their miracles because they could not trust this invisible clock. They spoke their word, felt their faith rise, and then, when nothing appeared at once, they grew restless, digging up the soil of consciousness to check if the seed had sprouted. But impatience is the great uprooter. It says to the universe, "I do not trust you." And the law, hearing disbelief, pauses its motion. The moment you relax again, the growth resumes. You cannot hurry spirit any more than you can hurry spring. You can prepare, you can expect, but you cannot force. And when you finally learn to rest in divine order, you find that all your good comes swiftly because you are no longer slowing it with fear. One of my students once said to me, "Florence, I've been affirming for months and nothing's happening." I asked her, "Are you waiting or are you watching?" She didn't understand, so I explained, "Waiting is heavy, watching is light. Waiting says, it isn't here yet. Watching says, it is on its way, and I'm eager to see how it will appear." The vibration of those two attitudes is worlds apart. She smiled and said she would begin watching instead. A few weeks later, she told me she had received exactly what she had been asking, for a position she thought she had missed months earlier had suddenly opened again. She said, "It was as if time rewound itself for me." I said, "No, my dear, time didn't change, you did. You entered the rhythm of divine timing, and it carried you directly into your good." This law can be seen in everything around us. The stars keep to their appointed courses. The tides rise and fall without haste or delay. The buds do not bloom before they are ready, yet when their season arrives, no power on earth can hold them back. Why, then, should you imagine that the rhythm of your own life is less precise? The moment you speak your word, the law begins to organize circumstances, people, opportunities, and ideas in perfect alignment. You may not see it yet, but the arrangement is underway. Just because the manifestation isn't visible, doesn't mean it isn't moving. A seed germinates in the darkness long before it breaks through the soil into light. That dark period is sacred. It is the time when roots are forming. Strength is being built. Foundations are being laid. Don't curse the darkness, it is the womb of creation. Let me tell you a story from my own experience. A woman once came to me saying, "Florence, I was promised a sum of $3,000, and it's long overdue. I need it desperately." I told her to release the tension and declare, "I am receiving this money in divine timing and in perfect ways." She did so, but came back days later, frustrated that nothing had happened. I repeated, "You must rest. The law is never late." Weeks passed, and then she received the check with interest. She laughed and said, "Florence, it was late, but it came better than I imagined." I said, "My dear, it was not late, it came at the perfect moment. Had it come sooner, you would have spent it in confusion. Now you are wise enough to use it in peace. That is divine timing. It never withholds, it prepares." Impatience is disbelief wearing a mask of urgency. When you say, "Where is it? Why hasn't it come?" you are declaring that the universe has failed you. The truth is, the universe cannot fail. It is always on time, always precise, always perfect. The delay you perceive is only the space between your declaration and your readiness to receive. Sometimes your good is ready, but you are not. You must grow into the vibration of what you have asked for. The law cannot bring you a gift that will overwhelm you. It must wait until your faith, your discipline, your awareness can hold it. If you rush ahead of divine order, the blessing can become a burden. How many have received sudden wealth only to lose it, or entered relationships before they were spiritually prepared, only to suffer? The universe protects you through delay. Divine timing is not punishment, it is mercy. The greatest proof of mastery is serenity in the face of apparent delay. The one who can say, "All things are working together for my good, and they unfold at the perfect time," has already received in the invisible what others are still struggling for in the visible. The calm expectancy of faith is a magnetic force. It attracts completion. Anxiety repels it. That is why I say, when you've spoken your word and done your work, step back and say, "Infinite Spirit, I rest in your order. You are never too late." Then stop counting the days. Stop measuring progress. Let the unseen do its work in silence. When the time is right, what is yours will burst forth like springtime after a long winter, and you'll realize that every moment of waiting was part of the miracle. One of the most profound affirmations you can speak under this law is this: there are no lost opportunities in divine mind. What is mine cannot be taken, and what is not mine cannot be held. Everything arrives at the perfect moment, under grace and in perfect ways. Say it slowly, and let the truth of it dissolve the tension in your body. Each time you speak it, you align your heartbeat with the rhythm of the universe. You begin to feel time itself expanding, softening, becoming your ally rather than your enemy. You no longer rush. You no longer chase. You walk calmly, knowing that your steps are ordered and your good is inevitable. There was once a student who prayed for success in her career. She told me, "I feel ready, but nothing's moving." I asked her, "What do you do with your days?" She confessed that she spent most of her time complaining about her current job. I smiled and said, "Then you are telling the universe that you are not yet ready for the promotion." Gratitude is the sign of readiness. When you can give thanks where you are, you've proven you can handle more. She took the lesson to heart, began blessing her current position, and within a month she was offered a new one, better pay, better hours, better environment. The law had been waiting for her agreement with gratitude. Once she aligned with divine timing, it was immediate. You see, divine timing does not mean delay, it means precision. Sometimes the alignment happens instantly, sometimes gradually, but it is always exact. What looks like a closed door is often just a door not yet meant to open. And when it does, it will swing wide with such ease that you'll know it could never have happened a day earlier or a minute sooner. Let us seal this law with a declaration of peace. Say it quietly, as if you are whispering, directly into the ear of infinite intelligence. I am in the rhythm of divine timing. I do not hurry, I do not wait. My good unfolds with effortless precision. Every delay is now dissolved into perfect preparation. I rest in the peace of God, and all that is mine comes to me in due season. Feel the calm that follows those words. That peace is the evidence that divine timing is now in motion. Nothing can stand in its way. The tide of good that belongs to you is rising, and when it reaches its appointed hour, you will step into it naturally, gracefully, without effort. And now that you understand this sacred law, the still perfect timing of spirit, it is time to look within at what still blocks the flow, to clear away the lingering fears and debts that cloud the channel of supply, so that the current may run swift and strong. For the laws of manifestation are not separate, they are woven together like threads in a single golden fabric, and the next thread we will take up is the clearing of the inner path. How to release every burden and stand in the full freedom of flow. There comes a time in every soul's journey when you must learn the sacred art of release, the ability to set down the invisible weight that you have carried for so long you have almost mistaken it for yourself. People move through life bent beneath burdens that were never meant to be theirs. Worry about the future, guilt from the past, the need to manage everything, the endless rehearsing of what might go wrong. These heavy thoughts cling to the mind like chains, and while the lips may speak of faith, the shoulders reveal the truth. You cannot attract abundance while you are bowed in fear. You cannot hear divine guidance while you are listening to the noise of anxiety. The burden must be lifted before the blessing can descend. The law cannot pour new wine into a vessel already filled with old self-pity. This is why I teach my students to cast every care, every fear, every burden upon the proof Christ within, for that inner presence is the great burden bearer, the silent redeemer, the endless reservoir of peace. I once knew a woman who came to me trembling over a financial situation that seemed hopeless. She said, "Florence, I've prayed, I've affirmed, but I feel sick with fear. I don't know what else to do." I said, "Then stop doing, give the burden to God." She looked at me with confusion, as though I had spoken in riddles. "How can I give it to God?" she asked. I said, "Say aloud, I cast this burden on the Christ within, and I go free." Then mean it. See yourself laying it down as you would set down a heavy basket at the end of a long journey. Feel the relief of it. The moment you release it, the law begins to act. She obeyed, and when she returned a week later, she was radiant. "Florence," she said, "the debt is cleared, and I don't even know how. The money came through a way I never imagined." I smiled and told her, "Of course it did." When you stopped clutching the problem, the answer had room to enter. Fear is inverted. Faith, it is faith in evil instead of good, faith in loss instead of gain, faith in chaos instead of order. Whatever you fear, you magnetize. Fear is not a condition, it is a vibration, a current that draws to itself the very thing it dreads. That is why Jesus said so often, "Fear not." It wasn't a comfort, it was an instruction in spiritual physics. The moment you release fear, you reverse the polarity of your life. You stop pulling in trouble and start attracting peace. The subconscious is a perfect servant, and if it is constantly fed pictures of danger, it must create experiences that match those pictures. But when you affirm safety, supply, and divine care, the subconscious relaxes, the channels of good open, and the current of life begins to flow unobstructed. Some people ask me, Florence, how can I not fear when the evidence looks so bad? And I answer, because the evidence is only the shadow of a thought. Change the thought, and the shadow changes. You cannot outthink fear with logic. You must dissolve it with faith. You must lift your eyes from the appearance to the truth. Every appearance of lack is a call to remember the infinite. Every appearance of danger is an invitation to rest in divine safety. The practice of casting the burden is not passive. It is the highest form of action, because it transfers the problem from the realm of confusion to the realm of law, where all things are possible. When you say, I cast this burden, you are declaring, this situation is no longer run by my limited understanding. It is now handled by infinite intelligence, which never fails. I often compare this process to a traveler carrying a heavy pack through a desert. The more he worries about the weight, the heavier it feels, until he finally collapses beneath it. But when he sets it down and looks up, he sees that the oasis was only a few steps away. The relief was waiting for him all along. He only needed to stop clinging to the load. The same is true for every problem. The blessing has been hovering near you, waiting for space to land. The law cannot deliver while your hands are full of fear. I've told countless students that the moment you cast a burden, you must refuse to pick it back up again. Some people drop their worries in the morning and pick them up again by nightfall. They pray for help, but keep checking to see if God is doing his job. That is not faith, that is interference. You must drop the burden once and for all, and when your mind tries to revisit it, repeat calmly, this has been handled. Divine love now takes care of it. It may take practice, but soon your mind will learn the habit of peace, and your heart will remember the joy of trust. There was a businessman who came to me overwhelmed by responsibilities. Everything depends on me, he said. I can't rest, or everything will fall apart. I said to him, that belief is your prison. Say instead, divine intelligence works through me and goes before me. The work is done perfectly, under grace, and in perfect ways. He began using that affirmation and discovered that tasks completed themselves with ease, helpers appeared, mistakes corrected themselves. He said, I realized I was never the one holding the world together, it was God all along. And so it is with you. The burden you carry, whether of money, health, or relationship, was never yours to bear. You are not meant to strain for your blessings, you are meant to allow them. The law of life is circulation, not constriction. When you clutch, you close. When you trust, you open. Every fear is a closed door, every act of faith is an open window. Let us pause here and practice together. Close your eyes for a moment, take a deep breath, and imagine every worry you've carried as a bundle of heavy stones resting on your shoulders. With your next breath, see yourself setting them down on the ground, one by one, until you stand tall and light. Then, say these words aloud. I cast this burden on the Christ within, and I go free. I am light, I am lifted, I am at peace. Divine order now handles every detail, and I rest in the assurance of perfect results. Feel the peace that follows those words. That peace is the proof that the law has taken over. You may not see the outer result yet, but the inner work is done. The machinery of the universe has begun to move in your favor. Remember this always. Every burden is a potential blessing in disguise. The weight that drove you to your knees was only grace in heavy clothing, forcing you to remember the source. Every difficulty is a divine messenger, saying, you have tried to carry this alone. Let it go, and watch what happens. When you cast the burden, you don't lose control, you regain alignment. You stop trying to be God and let God be God through you. And so, as you learn to turn your burdens into blessings, you will begin to feel a new rhythm in your life. Light, effortless, guided. The strain of striving gives way to the ease of trust. The more you release, the more you receive. For this is the paradox of spirit. Surrender is power, and rest is creation. Now that you know how to release the weight that blocks the flow, we will move to another illusion that must be dissolved, the illusion of debt. For debt is not a condition but a belief in separation from supply, and when that belief is corrected, the debt vanishes as surely as darkness vanishes before dawn. Debt, my dear friend, is not a number written in ink or a sum typed on a screen. It is a state of consciousness, a shadow thought that whispers of separation from your supply. It is the echo of the lie that you owe life something, that you are behind, that you must struggle to pay for what was freely given by grace. The world teaches that debt is a normal part of living, that everyone owes someone, that you must spend your life catching up. But I tell you this, you were not born indebted, you were born supplied. You were born connected to a source so vast that it cannot be measured. The only debt you have ever truly owed is the debt of gratitude to the divine life that breathes through you. All else is illusion. And when you dissolve that illusion, you dissolve the debt. When I speak of dissolving, I mean transforming the very belief that gave birth to the condition. The law always begins in consciousness, never in numbers. You may change banks, restructure loans, or shuffle accounts, but if the inner feeling of lack remains, the outer debt will find another disguise. The only permanent freedom comes when you replace the thought of owing with the thought of owning too, owning your divine inheritance, your eternal supply, your right to ease, joy, and abundance. When you say, God's wealth flows freely through me, you cancel the old vibration of debt and install a new pattern of freedom. I remember a man who came to me, trembling over debts that seemed to crush him. He said, Florence, I can't see a way out. Every month I pay, and every month I owe more. I said, stop paying in fear. Start paying in faith. He frowned, confused, so I explained. When you pay a bill with worry, you multiply the vibration of lack. But when you pay it with gratitude, you increase your wealth. The money you give in fear is gone. The money you give in faith returns multiplied. I told him to affirm before every payment, I pay this bill in joy, and it blesses all it touches. God's abundance now circulates freely through me, returning to me increased 1,000-fold. Within months, the debts began to vanish. Unexpected income arrived, opportunities opened, old accounts were cleared. He said to me later, Florence, I never imagined money could behave like that. I replied, money didn't change, you did. You stopped treating it as a prison guard and started treating it as a messenger of God. Debt is like fog. It looks dense, but it has no substance. It dissolves the moment you shine the light of truth upon it. That truth is simple. All provision comes from the infinite. An infinite supply cannot run short. When you think you owe something, remind yourself that you and God are one. God is the giver, the gift, and the giving. The same power that provided the breath in your lungs provides every dollar you will ever need. The more you recognize that unity, the faster every false appearance of debt disappears. Do not be deceived by appearances. The world of form is always playing catch-up with the world of spirit. You may still see the numbers, but once the inner alignment is made, they are already changing in the unseen. That is why I tell my students to bless their bills. A bill is not a punishment, it is a compliment. It is life saying, you have been trusted with energy, and now you are being given the opportunity to prove your faith in circulation. When you bless a bill, you break its power to frighten you. You turn it from a demand into a declaration. I tell them, don't say, I owe this. Say, this is already paid by divine substance in perfect ways. Then take action in joy, knowing that you are participating in the great flow of giving and receiving. I have also seen the opposite people who hoard, afraid to spend, clinging to their coins as though money were their savior. But fear of spending is another form of debt. It is the same belief in limitation wearing a different mask. Money is energy, it must move to live. If you stop its flow, it stagnates. When you spend joyfully, you bless the circuit. When you give with peace, you open channels wider. The universe always refills what you release with love. Let me give you a picture. Imagine you are standing beside a beautiful fountain. Water flows freely from its center, overflowing into pools and streams that feed the gardens around you. Now imagine you scoop up a handful of that water and close your fist tightly, afraid to lose it. What happens? It runs out between your fingers, leaving your hand dry. But if you open your hand and let it flow, you can dip again and again, always full. That is the law of supply. It is movement, not possession. Holding too tightly is the real poverty. Trusting the flow is wealth beyond measure. One of my students once wrote to me saying, Florence, I have debts I cannot pay, and it keeps me awake at night. I told her to stop calling them my debts. The possessive pronoun binds you to the condition. Instead, I said, call them the illusion of debt. She began to affirm, the illusion of debt is dissolved now and forever. I am free, and God's wealth flows to me in perfect ways. Within a few weeks, unexpected forgiveness came from one of her creditors, and another offered her extended grace. In time, her balance sheet was cleared, but more importantly, her mind was free. She said, I no longer see bills as threats, I see them as proof of God's circulation. That shift of awareness was the real miracle. I often remind people that freedom from debt begins with gratitude, not guilt. Guilt says, I'm wrong for having this condition. Gratitude says, I'm grateful that truth dissolves it. The emotion you attach to your circumstance determines how long it remains. The moment you move from fear to faith, from guilt to gratitude, from resistance to blessing, the energy untangles. The channels open, the debts clear. Let's make this truth practical right now. Take a moment and think of any bill, loan, or obligation that weighs on your mind. Picture it in front of you as a piece of paper glowing with light. Say quietly, this is not a debt, it is divine energy in motion. Infinite supply now balances every account. What is owed is paid, what is given is returned, and all is complete under grace and in perfect ways. Feel the relief in your body as you say it. That feeling is the real transaction. The numbers will catch up soon enough. Debt is the shadow of mistrust, and trust is the dawn that dispels it. When you stop believing that you are separate from your source, all accounts come to balance. You realize that you were never in deficit. You were only dreaming of separation. And when you wake from that dream, you find yourself standing in the garden of infinite wealth, where every flower is paid for, every need supplied, every exchange balanced in perfect order. And now that you have learned to see through the illusion of debt, it's time to clear another subtle obstruction to prosperity, an invisible chain that binds more hearts than all the debts of the world combined. It is the weight of resentment, the unpaid balance of unforgiveness. Because until the heart is free, the hands cannot receive. So let us move into the next revelation. Forgiveness as the gateway to financial freedom and the circulation of divine love. There is a secret chamber within the heart where all the treasures of life are stored, and that chamber must be kept open if you wish for the current of divine supply to flow through you without obstruction. Nothing closes it faster, nothing seals it tighter than resentment. Unforgiveness is the invisible debt that weighs more heavily than any financial one because it blocks not just your joy but the very circulation of spirit through your affairs. You may speak the word of prosperity until your voice grows weary, but if there is bitterness hidden in some corner of your soul, you will feel as though the heavens are brass, the prayers unanswered, the flow unmoving. It is not punishment, it is simple law. The current of good cannot pass through a channel choked with grievance. Every unhealed resentment is a knot in the hose of supply. The moment you forgive, the knot loosens, the flow resumes, and what seemed delayed rushes in like a river breaking through a dam. Forgiveness is not an emotion, it is a decision to stop carrying what does not belong to you. It does not mean condoning the wrong or pretending it didn't hurt. It means releasing yourself from the poison of remembering it again and again. When you refuse to forgive, you bind yourself to the very energy you despise. You become the jailer and the prisoner, both locked inside the same cell of bitterness. But when you forgive, you unlock the door and step into freedom. You breathe again, and the world breathes with you. The law is very simple. As within, so without. The debt you refuse to cancel in consciousness will appear as a debt you cannot pay in the material world. The enemy you hold in your mind will show up as the obstacle that blocks your blessing. Forgiveness clears the ledger of your soul, and once that account is balanced, every outer account follows suit. I remember a woman who came to me, angry and broken after a business partner had betrayed her trust. She said, "Florence, I can never forgive him. He stole from me." I said, "My dear, you cannot afford not to forgive him. Every moment you withhold forgiveness, you are paying interest on the debt of your own resentment." She wept, but she listened. I told her to begin blessing him every day, to speak aloud, "I bless this man with love, and I release him to his highest good. What he took returns to me through divine channels, and all is well." She resisted at first, her pride rebelled, but she persisted, if only out of desperation. Weeks passed, and then she came to me astonished. "Florence," she said, "the strangest thing happened. A new client came into my life, and the amount they paid me was almost exactly what I had lost." I smiled and said, "Nothing strange about it. The moment you forgave, you opened the floodgate. The universe was simply waiting for your permission." I have seen this principle demonstrated in countless ways. A man once told me, "My finances are stagnant, every deal I touch falls through." I asked him, "Is there anyone you resent?" He hesitated, then admitted, "My brother and I haven't spoken in years." I said, "Then that's where your prosperity is locked. Release your brother, and you'll release your wealth." He thought it absurd, but agreed to try. He wrote his brother a letter of goodwill, expecting nothing in return. The very week he mailed it, a long-delayed payment came through from a client. He said, "Florence, The timing can't be a coincidence. I told him, it's not coincidence, it's correspondence. Inner release creates outer return. You see, forgiveness restores circulation. Life itself is circulation, blood through the body, breath through the lungs, money through the economy, love through relationships. Wherever there is flow, there is health. Wherever there is obstruction, there is decay. Unforgiveness is spiritual cholesterol, clogging the arteries of abundance. The moment you remove it, vitality returns. You begin to see that every person who hurt you was a teacher in disguise, showing you where you still clung to fear, pride, or the need for control. Bless them for the lesson, and they lose all power to harm you. People often ask me, but Florence, how can I forgive someone who isn't sorry? And I say, you forgive them, not for their sake, but for yours. Forgiveness is not reconciliation, it's release. You are not waiting for their apology, you are freeing your own heart. You cannot drink poison and hope another falls ill. The act of forgiveness detoxifies your consciousness so that divine energy can circulate freely again. It is spiritual hygiene. You do not wait for others to deserve it any more than you wait for your home to be clean before you dust it. You forgive because you love freedom more than you love resentment. There is another level of forgiveness that must also be addressed. Self-forgiveness. Many people unconsciously sabotage their prosperity because they secretly believe they do not deserve it. They carry guilt from the past, shame over mistakes, regrets over what might have been. That guilt becomes a wall between them and their good. I tell them, God never remembers your mistakes. Why should you? The past has no power except the one you give it. When you say, I forgive myself completely, the past is finished and dissolved. I am now free to receive. You remove the final obstacle to abundance. The universe does not punish, it reflects. The moment you forgive yourself, life forgives you too. Once, a young woman came to me, burdened by shame. She said, Florence, I made terrible financial choices, and now I can't seem to get ahead. I feel cursed. I told her, you are not cursed, you are condemning yourself. The law cannot bless what you reject. You must look at your past and say, it is forgiven, it is finished. It has no more hold on me. Then you will see your present change. She took my words to heart, and as she released her self-judgment, her business revived. She later said, I realized that my real creditor wasn't the bank, it was my own conscience. Once I paid that debt with forgiveness, everything else fell into place. When you forgive, you are not erasing history, you are reassigning its meaning. You declare that no event, no person, no mistake has the power to define your destiny. You reclaim the authority of your own soul. The energy you once used to replay old wounds becomes available for creation. That is why forgiveness and prosperity are twins. They are both expressions of flow. One clears the channel, the other fills it. Let us practice this now. Bring to mind someone, perhaps yourself, toward whom you still feel tension. Do not fight the feeling. Simply look at it with love, as though you are holding a child who has made a mistake. Then say quietly, I bless you with love. I forgive you completely and release you to your highest good. All the cords between us are now dissolved in light. I am free, and you are free, and divine love now sets all things in perfect order. Breathe deeply. Feel the lightness that follows. That lightness is the sign that the blockage has lifted, that the flow has resumed. You will soon notice new opportunities appearing, unexpected gifts, harmonious encounters. Forgiveness has cleared the way for the tide of good to reach you. Always remember, the law does not deal in punishment but in reflection. What you send out returns, purified or magnified according to the spirit in which it was given. When you send out love, love returns multiplied. When you release resentment, peace rushes in to fill the space. When you forgive, you create room for grace to live in you. So, if you truly wish for financial freedom, start with forgiveness. Cancel every emotional debt, bless every adversary, release every regret. Say each morning, there is nothing and no one to forgive, for everything and everyone are already in divine order. That is the consciousness of heaven, and heaven, once found within, must appear without. And now that you have unbound the heart and set the current flowing freely once again, we move to the next revelation, to the reprogramming of the subconscious mind for permanent wealth and harmony, so that the new pattern of prosperity becomes not a temporary wave, but an eternal tide that rises and never recedes. There is an inner workshop within you, a silent chamber where every condition of your life is designed, drawn, and built before it appears in form. That sacred space is the subconscious mind. It never sleeps, never argues, never tires, and never forgets. It is always at work, always taking orders, always shaping substance according to the words and feelings you impress upon it. The subconscious does not reason, it responds. It is the perfect servant, and like every perfect servant, it carries out instructions to the letter. It takes your repeated words, your deep-seated emotions, your constant inner pictures, and molds the outer world to match them. If those impressions are filled with faith, gratitude, and abundance, your world will reflect beauty and ease. But if they are charged with fear, complaint, and anxiety, the subconscious will just as faithfully reproduce those, for it is impartial, as law itself is impartial. This is why reprogramming the subconscious is not an option, it is a necessity. You cannot build a palace of prosperity upon blueprints of lack. People often tell me, "Florence, I keep affirming abundance, but it doesn't seem to work." I ask them, "What do you tell yourself when you're not affirming?" For the moments between your declarations often speak louder than the declarations themselves. The subconscious is impressed most strongly when your words and your emotions agree. If you say, "I am rich," but tremble with fear about tomorrow's bills, the subconscious feels the fear and ignores the words. It does not understand language, it understands vibration. You cannot lie to it. It listens to the tone of your soul, not the diction of your lips. That is why it is written, "Out of the abundance of the heart the mouth speaketh." The heart's emotion is the real command. So, if you wish to change your life, you must first change the emotional tone that vibrates beneath your words. The process begins with awareness. Listen to yourself. Watch your thoughts as a gardener watches his soil. Each negative thought is a weed, and each word of truth is a seed. You do not hate the weeds, you simply pull them out and plant again. The act of reprogramming is one of gentle persistence. It is not a battle, it is a re-education of your inner world. When an old thought arises, "There's never enough," or "money doesn't last," do not scold yourself. Simply say, "That was the old pattern. I now choose abundance." Then replace it with a living statement of truth. God is my instant, constant, and abundant supply. What is mine by divine right cannot be taken or delayed. Say it softly, confidently, until you feel peace in your chest. That peace is the moment the new pattern is impressed. I remember once working with a woman who had lived for years under the shadow of lack. Every time she earned money, something went wrong, a bill, an illness, an accident. She said, "Florence, it feels like I'm cursed." I told her, "You're not cursed, you're conditioned. Your subconscious has been trained to expect loss. It's doing exactly what you told it to." She looked surprised. "I never told it to do that," she said. "Yes, you did," I answered gently. "Every time you said, 'Something always goes wrong,' you gave it a command." I gave her new words. "Everything always goes right for me now. I am guided, protected, and abundantly supplied." I told her to say it at night before sleep, and again upon waking, because those moments are when the subconscious is most open, half in the world of form, half in the world of spirit. Within a few weeks, her entire pattern shifted. Money stayed. Opportunities multiplied. "I feel safe now," she said, and I told her, "That safety was always there. You just had to let your mind believe it." The subconscious is the bridge between heaven and earth. It is the fertile soil in which divine ideas take root and bloom into experience. To reprogram it, you must feed it new images as well as new words. See yourself surrounded by light, by ease, by abundance. Feel what it is like to live without fear. The subconscious learns through pictures and emotions more than through logic. If you can feel it real, the law must make it real. At night, as you drift into sleep, say softly, "I rest in divine plenty, my supply is sure. I live in a universe of abundance, and all my needs are met." These words sink into the subconscious like seeds falling into rich soil. While you sleep, the law goes to work, arranging conditions, opening doors, bringing to you the forms that match your inner belief. You may think you have to fight years of negative programming, but that is not true. Light does not struggle to replace darkness, it simply shines, and the darkness disappears. One moment of genuine realization can erase a lifetime of fear. The subconscious does not keep score, it responds to your dominant feeling in the present. That is why forgiveness, gratitude, and joy are so powerful. They instantly lift your vibration, overriding every old pattern of limitation. If you want to accelerate your transformation, practice gratitude every morning. Before you rise, thank God for supply, even before it appears. Gratitude impresses abundance on the subconscious more quickly than any other emotion. And remember, repetition is not mechanical, it is rhythmic. The subconscious loves rhythm, the steady beat of certainty. That is why affirmations spoken in a calm, consistent tone are so effective. You are not trying to convince, you are harmonizing. Each repetition is a heartbeat aligning you with the infinite. Eventually, the new thought becomes so natural that you no longer affirm it, you live it. You find yourself thinking prosperity, breathing prosperity, expecting prosperity. That is when the reprogramming is complete. Let me give you one more practice, simple but powerful. Each night, before you sleep, close your eyes and imagine a great river of golden light flowing through you from the top of your head to the soles of your feet. See it carrying away every thought of fear or lack. Then say slowly, God is my supply, I rest in plenty. Infinite abundance now fills my mind, my body, my world. Let those words drift down into your subconscious like lullabies. Do not strain. Do not try, just rest. The next morning, you will feel lighter, more confident, more expectant. That feeling is the new pattern taking hold. I have told my students for years, your subconscious mind is your divine banker. It keeps perfect accounts, but it accepts any deposit you make, whether of fear or faith. Choose wisely what you deposit. If you send it words of truth, it will return dividends of prosperity. If you feed it worry, it will return interest in kind. The choice is yours every moment. Speak only the language of abundance. Think only of what you desire to see. Feel only the joy of it already done. Then the subconscious will become your most faithful ally, turning every spoken word into gold. Let us affirm together now. My subconscious mind is filled with divine ideas. Every thought within me is an instrument of prosperity. I think only truth. I feel only peace. I expect only good. All that I need and desire is already established within me, and it manifests now under grace and in perfect ways. Rest in that for a moment. Feel the stillness behind those words. That stillness is the sound of creation already complete. You have impressed the pattern. The law must bring it forth. You need not struggle. You need only trust. The subconscious never sleeps, and tonight it will begin rearranging the world to match the picture you hold. And now that the inner pattern has been renewed and your channel cleared, you are ready to learn how to sustain that flow permanently, how to live not as one who receives blessings occasionally, but as one who abides continually in the current of divine wealth. For prosperity, once established in consciousness, must be practiced daily, just as a musician practices her scales, so that her song remains clear and strong. So let us move forward into the fifth revelation, where we will learn the rhythm of giving, gratitude, and divine purpose, the secret of living in the flow of permanent supply. Everything in this universe lives by the same breath, the same pulse, the same eternal rhythm of giving and receiving. There is no stagnation in spirit, no hoarding in heaven, no such thing as stillness in the substance of God. Life moves. It expands, it circulates, it flows through every atom and every soul like the tides of an infinite sea, and the moment you begin to move with that current instead of against it, the gates of abundance swing open and the flood pours through. This is the law of circulation, the divine law that governs all increase, all flow, all wealth, all life itself. Whatever you give in the spirit of love, faith, and gratitude returns multiplied. Whatever you withhold through fear or resentment withers because you have choked its current. Every seed you plant returns a harvest. Every blessing you send out finds its way back home. Money, like blood, must move. The moment it stops circulating, it begins to die. The miser thinks he is saving his wealth, but he is suffocating it. The fearful giver believes he is being cautious, but he is closing his own hands against the divine. The universe will not flow through clenched fists. The law of circulation is not about reckless giving. It is about faithful giving, releasing what no longer serves, trusting that what leaves will return, purified and multiplied. You do not give to lose. You give to prove the law, to keep the energy of abundance alive. I once knew a woman who came to me trembling because she had only $1 to her name. She said, "Florence, I can't even afford to tithe." I told her gently, "Then you cannot afford not to. That dollar is your seed. Plant it where you are guided and bless it as it goes." She obeyed, giving the dollar to someone who needed it more. Within days, she received a check for $20. She gave again, joyfully this time, and soon larger amounts began to flow. She learned what the world does not understand. It is not money that creates abundance. It is consciousness. The dollar was not the cause of her increase, it was the symbol of her faith. She had aligned herself with circulation, and the law had to respond. There is a reason the heart beats, the lungs breathe, and the tides move without cease. Stagnation is death, movement is life. When you give with fear, you interrupt that rhythm. When you give with love, you amplify it. The farmer does not lament the seed he casts into the soil. He knows it will return multiplied. He does not stand over the field shouting, "I've lost my seed." He knows the law, he trusts the process, he gives and waits in peace. That is how you must give quietly, gratefully, without anxiety, without calculation, without the thought of what you will get back. You do not give to get, you give to live in the consciousness of abundance. The harvest takes care of itself. I remember another story, one I have told many times, because it so perfectly illustrates the power of circulation. A woman once said to me, "Florence, I'm afraid to spend. Every time I pay a bill, I feel smaller." I told her, "You must bless the outflow as much as the inflow. The money you spend is not leaving you. It is moving through you." I gave her this affirmation. I pay all bills joyfully, knowing that my supply is inexhaustible, for God is my immediate source. She began to say it aloud each time she paid for something, from the smallest purchase to the largest check. Her entire vibration changed. Instead of fear, she felt gratitude. Instead of shrinking, she expanded. Within a short time, her income doubled, and she said to me, "Florence, it feels as if I've entered a different universe." And I said, "You have. You've entered the universe of flow." When I speak of circulation, I do not mean only the circulation of money, but of love, joy, kindness, forgiveness, ideas, and service. Give whatever you wish to receive. If you want recognition, celebrate others. If you want companionship, offer friendship. If you want opportunity, open the door for someone else. You cannot outgive God, for God is the giver in you. Each time you share from a place of faith, you prove that you trust the source, and the source expands through that trust. There was once a man who told me he could not find work. He said, "No one wants to hire me." I said, "Then find someone you can serve." He frowned. "But I need money." I said, "So does the farmer, yet he gives his seed first." He began volunteering his skills for a charity, and within a month, one of the people he helped offered him a full-time position. "Florence," he said, "I didn't even apply for this job, it came to me." I replied, "You gave first. You opened the gate. That is the law. If ever you feel fear of giving, remember this. You are not giving away your supply, you are circulating it. The divine substance that flows through you is infinite. It cannot be depleted, it can only be demonstrated. Your role is to keep the channels open. If one channel closes, another will appear. Do not look to people or institutions as your source, they are only instruments. God is the source. When you give with that knowledge, your gifts never diminish you, they magnify you. Let me give you a simple practice to begin each day. When you wake, before you even rise, say quietly, "Infinite Spirit, I am an open channel for divine supply. Money, love, and ideas flow to me and through me in endless circulation. I am a joyful giver and a grateful receiver. I am rich in every way." Then move through your day watching how life responds. Someone will smile at you, an opportunity will appear, a problem will resolve itself. That is circulation in action. Each act of giving creates a vacuum that must be filled. The universe rushes to fill it with more. I have often said that money is like blood, and love is its heartbeat. Every gift given in joy becomes a pulse that strengthens the whole body of humanity. Each time you give, you are sending life through the veins of creation. The circulation of good keeps the universe healthy. The miser, the hoarder, the fearful one, they cut off that pulse and suffer the symptoms. Isolation, anxiety, stagnation. But the giver, the joyful participant in the divine economy, is always surrounded by freshness, by vitality, by newness. Giving is not loss, it is resurrection. It brings the dead areas of your life back to life. You might ask, "But Florence, what if I give and nothing returns?" And I say, then you have not yet given in the spirit of freedom. True giving expects no return from the same source. It releases, knowing that the return may come from anywhere, anytime, in any form. You cannot outline the law. The good you send out may circle the globe before it finds its way back to you, but it will return always multiplied, always timed perfectly. Trust the circulation. And if you are ever tempted to hold back, fearing there is not enough, remember this. The hand that gives and the hand that receives are the same hand. When you open it, both actions happen at once. You cannot open to receive without also releasing to give. It is one motion, one breath, one infinite exchange. So bless the flow. Bless every dollar that leaves your hand. Bless every smile you give, every word of kindness, every act of service. Say silently, this, too, returns to me under grace and in perfect ways. Say it until it becomes your natural heartbeat. And soon you will find that life itself begins to circulate around you like a living aura of abundance. Everything you need arrives when you need it, everything you give multiplies. You will know the joy of being a true channel of divine supply, an instrument through which God's abundance flows freely and endlessly. Let us seal this understanding with an affirmation. I am the channel of divine circulation. Every gift I give blesses the giver and the receiver alike. I give joyfully, I receive gratefully, and the river of life flows through me without end. All that I give returns to me multiplied under grace and in perfect ways. Now rest in that truth. Feel the movement of life within you, the quiet, steady rhythm of giving and receiving, giving and receiving. That is the heartbeat of the universe, and it beats in you. And now, as we continue on this golden path of truth, let us move deeper into the heart of gratitude itself. For gratitude is the fragrance of circulation, the perfume of prosperity, the invisible magnet that multiplies all it touches. Gratitude, my dear friend, is the music of heaven made audible upon the earth. It is the fragrance that rises from the soul when it remembers that all of life is a gift. Where gratitude is, increase follows. Where complaint is, decrease begins. Gratitude is not a mere emotion, it is a magnetic vibration that multiplies whatever it touches. Every word of thanks sends out a pulse that calls to its own kind. Each time you say thank you, you send an invisible current into the universe that gathers more reasons to thank. To be grateful before the blessing appears is to move directly into the rhythm of creation itself. It is the divine key that unlocks the treasure chest of supply, because gratitude says to the infinite, I recognize your hand already at work. The moment you acknowledge good, more good rushes toward you, because you have become a channel wide enough to receive it. Most people believe they must wait for evidence before they give thanks. They say, I'll be grateful when things improve, when I get the job, when the debt is cleared, when the healing comes. But that is not gratitude, that is reaction. True gratitude is a creative force, not a response to conditions. It is the cause, not the effect. When you thank God in advance, you are planting seeds of faith that the universe must honor. The soil of spirit cannot refuse a seed sown in gratitude. It must multiply it. This is the secret of every miracle. Jesus gave thanks before he broke the bread, not after the multitude was fed. He looked up, blessed the small, and it expanded to meet the need of thousands. He didn't beg, he didn't doubt, he thanked. That single act set the law of multiplication into motion. I have told countless students, if you can only master one spiritual practice, let it be gratitude. I once worked with a woman who seemed surrounded by delay and disappointment. She said, Florence, nothing I do works. I pray, I affirm, I visualize, but life keeps saying no. I asked her, have you tried saying thank you? She looked at me bewildered. For what? She asked. Everything, I said. Thank God for the bills, for the waiting, for the lessons, for the air you breathe, for the roof over your head. Bless what you have instead of mourning what you lack. She began reluctantly, but she kept at it. She kept a little book and wrote, Thank you for this day. Thank you for the courage to go on. Thank you for the small things. Weeks later, she came to me glowing. Florence, she said, I don't know what happened, but my life feels light again. Money is coming easily. People are kind. I even sleep better. I smiled and said, You tuned yourself to abundance. Gratitude lifted your frequency to match your good. When you wake each morning, your first words should be words of thanks. For gratitude at dawn draws blessings all day. Before your feet touch the floor, say softly, Thank you, God, for life, for supply, for guidance, for love. Let it be your morning prayer and your nightly benediction. Gratitude is the language angels speak. It is the currency of heaven. Each act of thankfulness is a deposit in your invisible account of abundance, and unlike earthly banks, that account pays interest compounded in joy. The more you thank, the more there is to thank for. I remember another story a man once told me. Florence, I'm at my wit's end. My finances are a mess, and I can't seem to turn things around, I said. Then stop cursing your money and start blessing it. He looked surprised. Bless it? He asked. Yes, I said. Every time you see a coin, say, I bless you, and see you multiplying. Every time you open your wallet, say, Thank you, Infinite Spirit, for this evidence of supply. He did as I said. The first time he tried it, he told me he felt foolish. The second time, he smiled. The third time, he laughed. Within weeks, his business began to flourish. Gratitude had opened the channels that fear had closed. The energy of appreciation had called forth new opportunities. He said, "Florence, my money actually seems friendlier." I told him, "It is. Gratitude has made it your ally." The act of giving thanks in adversity is the highest form of mastery. Anyone can be grateful when life is kind, but the soul that can bless the storm while the winds are howling has entered the kingdom of power. I once said that every test is a blessing in disguise, and gratitude is what removes the disguise. When you can thank life for the lesson before you see the result, you transform the energy of difficulty into the substance of blessing. The law cannot bring you anything that you truly bless. What you bless, you elevate. What you criticize, you bind to yourself. It is so easy to speak words of complaint. People do it without thought, saying, "This is awful, nothing ever works, I can't catch a break." Each word of complaint is an anti-blessing, a statement of lack that multiplies itself as quickly as gratitude multiplies good. The two cannot coexist. Each moment you have a choice, to curse or to bless, to contract or to expand, to descend into fear or to rise into faith. Choose gratitude and you rise. Choose complaint and you sink. The energy you emit draws to you experiences of the same vibration. Gratitude is the ladder by which you climb out of limitation into abundance. If ever you feel despair, do not struggle to change your mood. Simply start thanking. Thank God for anything you can think of, no matter how small or absurd it seems. The vibration of gratitude will begin to shift your mind before you can even understand why. It dissolves fear, it melts tension, it changes the chemistry of your very body. It aligns you with life itself. Soon the heaviness lifts, ideas flow, and opportunities appear. The world outside changes because you have changed the world within. Let us make this practical. I want you to practice what I call the threefold Thanksgiving. Each day, give thanks for what has been, for what is, and for what is to come. Thank God for the past, not as a burden but as a teacher. Thank God for the present as your field of opportunity. Thank God for the future as already fulfilled. This keeps your consciousness anchored in faith, not in fear. The law responds instantly to such gratitude. It says, "Here is one who believes, here is one who recognizes," and the supply increases. Gratitude also multiplies love. The more you appreciate others, the more lovable they become. The more you thank your own life, the more alive it feels. Bless the people who serve you, the cashier, the driver, the stranger who holds the door. Each word of thanks is a seed of kindness that blossoms somewhere in the unseen, and when it blooms, it returns to you in ways beyond imagining. Now let us speak a declaration together to plant this truth deeply in your consciousness. I am grateful now and always. I give thanks before the evidence appears. I bless the small and the great, the seen and the unseen. Every word of gratitude multiplies my good, for I live in a universe that responds instantly to praise. What I bless blesses me. What I thank expands. Say it slowly, feel it vibrate in your chest. That vibration is the golden current of multiplication moving through you. Every thought of gratitude is a beam of light, and together they form a crown of radiance around your life. Walk in that light, and lack can never find you. Gratitude turns your world into gold, not metaphorical gold, but living substance, visible provision, tangible prosperity. It is alchemy of the soul. And once you learn to live in continual thanksgiving, you will discover that you are never without supply, for the thankful heart is the magnet of heaven itself. Now, as we move deeper into this journey, we must speak of the great purpose behind all abundance, the reason prosperity exists at all, to fulfill your divine design. For money and supply were never meant to be the end. They are the means by which your purpose is expressed, your gifts are given, your joy is made manifest. Let us go forward and speak now of living from divine purpose, for that is the true foundation of permanent wealth. There is a reason why you were born, a divine idea that long ago leapt from the mind of God and took form as you. You are not an accident, not a coincidence, not a random spark lost in the crowd of creation. You are a plan fulfilled, a purpose unfolding, a melody that the infinite desired to hear made audible through your life. When you live from that divine purpose, you live from the center of your supply, because purpose is the pipeline through which all prosperity flows. You cannot be poor while you are doing the work that God created you to do. You cannot lack when you are in alignment with your true calling, for the universe rushes to support every soul that is expressing its divine design. The moment you begin to serve the plan written within your own heart, every need is met in perfect ways. Doors open, opportunities appear, provision comes from invisible channels, and you walk as one who is upheld by the law itself. I have met so many who chase money, only to find that it runs faster than they can. They wear themselves out pursuing the shadow instead of the substance. But those who follow their purpose, who give their gifts freely, who seek first to serve rather than to secure, find that money begins to chase them. For money is the echo of usefulness. It is the applause of life-rewarding service. When you are doing what you love, what you were created for, the law of circulation turns in your favor, because you are in rhythm with the great intention of creation itself. You are no longer working against the tide, you are carried by it. People often ask me, Florence, how do I find my purpose? And I tell them, your purpose is not hiding, it has been whispering to you all along. It lives in your joy, in your natural talents, in the activities that make you forget time. The things you do effortlessly, the things that fill you with quiet satisfaction, those are clues to your divine design. The soul never shouts, it speaks in subtle nudges, gentle longings, sacred excitement. Follow the feeling of aliveness. That is your compass. The intellect will argue, but the heart knows. There was once a woman who came to me disheartened. She said, Florence, I'm working so hard, but nothing feels right. I can't seem to get ahead. I asked her, do you love what you do? She said, no, but it pays the bills. I told her, then you are working for fear instead of faith. You are obeying limitation, not divine law. I gave her an affirmation. There is a perfect work in a perfect way. I give a perfect service for perfect pay. I told her to repeat it daily, to let it sink deep into her consciousness, and to follow any intuitive ideas that arose. Within months, she was offered a position in a field she had long admired but never dared to pursue. The new work suited her perfectly, the pay was greater, and she said, Florence, it feels like this job found me. I told her, it did. It was waiting all along for you to become ready to receive it. When you live from divine purpose, you do not chase opportunities, you magnetize them. Your purpose need not be grand in the eyes of the world. It may be as simple as bringing light to those around you, speaking truth in your daily tasks, expressing beauty in the small things. A rose fulfills its purpose just by blooming. The sun fulfills its purpose by shining. You fulfill your purpose by being exactly what God intended, a channel of love, wisdom, and creation. When you give your service with joy, you activate the law of divine compensation, and the universe cannot help but prosper you. I once said that there is no such thing as a small work if it is done with a great spirit. A man sweeping a floor with love is serving the divine plan as fully as a musician performing a symphony. The power lies not in the task but in the consciousness behind it. When your work becomes a form of worship, when every action is an offering to the infinite, even the simplest labor turns to gold. You become a co-creator with God, and all of heaven becomes your employer. Many struggle because they separate their spiritual life from their daily work. They say, I will be spiritual when I pray, but business is business. They forget that business is simply the movement of supply, and all supply is divine. When you infuse your work with spirit, you turn commerce into communion. Every sale becomes. There is a point in every life when one must turn inward and ask the great question, not how can I get more, but why am I here? For until that question is answered, all outer abundance is unstable, and every blessing feels temporary. To live in divine purpose is to be anchored in the eternal current of supply, for when you are about your Father's business, the Father's wealth becomes your inheritance. The world teaches that we work for money, but the truth is that we work for expression. We are here not to earn a living, but to reveal a life. When you move in harmony with your purpose, every door opens easily, every channel stays clear, and the divine economy rushes to support you. You cannot fail in what you are divinely designed to do, for the design itself contains its provision. The bird never wonders whether it can afford to fly. The flight is built into its being. The fish does not save up to swim. Water is its home, so it is with you. The moment you discover your true function in the great body of spirit, supply begins to flow through you like blood through the veins. Many souls spend years chasing what they call success, only to find themselves exhausted and empty when they finally reach it. They climb ladders that lean against the wrong wall. They accumulate possessions that bring no peace. They labor under goals that were never their own, and they wonder why the joy does not last. I tell them gently, you are pursuing effect instead of cause. You are chasing the shadow instead of the light that casts it. True prosperity is not achieved, it is allowed. It flows from alignment, not ambition. When you are in your right place, doing your right work, in the right spirit, supply comes so naturally that you scarcely notice how it arrives. It is as effortless as breathing, as joyful as singing. I remember a young woman who came to me many years ago. She said, Florence, I've changed jobs 3 times, but nothing feels right. I want to do what I love, but I can't afford to. I looked at her and said, you can't afford not to. God never asks you to do what He will not support. I gave her an affirmation that I have used myself countless times. There is a perfect work in a perfect way. I give a perfect service for perfect pay. I told her to repeat it every day, but not as a demand, rather as a recognition. Within a few weeks, she was offered a position that matched her training, her joy, and her natural gifts. It paid more than any of the others had, but she said the money felt secondary to the fulfillment she felt each morning. Florence, she said, I finally feel like myself. That is divine purpose, when your work becomes an extension of your soul instead of an effort of your ego. Every person is a unique expression of the infinite, a living idea in the mind of God. No two are alike, and no one can ever take another's place. When you envy someone else's path, you close your own. When you compete, you confess separation. There is no competition in the kingdom, there is only completion. What is yours cannot be stolen, and what belongs to another cannot be claimed by you. When you rest in that truth, the need to struggle disappears, and the flow begins again. You find yourself guided, nudged, led by intuition into opportunities that fit you as perfectly as the key fits the lock it was shaped to open. Divine purpose does not always announce itself in trumpets and visions. Sometimes it begins as a quiet joy, a gentle pull, a small voice that says, "This feels right." That feeling is the whisper of spirit calling you home. Follow it, even if it leads you away from what seems sensible. The divine plan is always greater than the personal plan. Many times I have told my students, do not try to reason out your next step. Ask and listen. Your intuition is the language of your purpose. The still small voice will never mislead you, though it may lead you beyond the limits of logic. That is where miracles occur, in the territory where trust replaces calculation. I once counseled a man who had a prosperous business but was miserable. He said, Florence, I feel trapped. I have everything I wanted, but none of it satisfies me. I asked him, what did you love as a child? His eyes softened. Music, he said. I wanted to compose, but I was told it wasn't practical. I told him, you've been denying your real wealth. Begin to honor it again. He began to play and write in the evenings, just for pleasure, and within a year he was offered a position composing scores for films, earning even more than before. He said, Florence, the money followed the music. I told him, the money always follows the music. The music is your purpose. When you live from purpose, you become magnetic. People sense your alignment. They are drawn to your clarity. You stop pushing and start attracting. The universe delights in efficiency. It will not waste energy supporting confusion. But the moment you commit to your true calling, even if you do not yet know how it will unfold, the law rearranges itself to make the way clear. Divine order responds to divine obedience. The supply for every demand is already prepared, waiting for your recognition. You need not struggle for what you are born to express. You need only say yes. Purpose also purifies desire. When you align your ambitions with your calling, greed transforms into generosity, fear into service, struggle into joy. You realize that prosperity was never about accumulation, it was about circulation, about being a clear conduit for the infinite to pour itself into the world through you. Money, success, recognition, these become byproducts, not goals. They follow you naturally, as your shadow follows you in sunlight. The joy is in the giving, in the expression, in knowing that your life is a blessing to others. Let me tell you something that will save you years of effort. When you are living from divine purpose, you will always be provided for. You may not always know where the next opportunity will come from, but it will come. The universe will move heaven and earth to support the fulfillment of the idea that God has planted in you. If the supply ever seems delayed, it is only because the next step is still forming. Be patient, stay faithful, keep giving your gift, and the channels will open again. The idea itself carries its own provision. Your work is to keep the channel clear. If you ever feel lost or uncertain, repeat this affirmation. I am now fulfilling my divine purpose. I am in my perfect work, doing what I love. in perfect ways. Every door I need opens, every resource I require appears, and my life expresses the wisdom and abundance of God. Say it slowly, not as a plea but as a statement of fact. Let it resonate in you. Feel the peace that follows, for that peace is the sign that you are back in alignment. That peace is the rhythm of divine order pulsing through you, whispering, "All is well." To live from divine purpose is to live in perpetual supply. You stop asking, "How will I survive?" and start asking, "How can I serve?" And the moment you do, life begins to serve you. That is the secret. Service is the seed of success. Love is the law of increase. Purpose is the blueprint of prosperity. Follow these, and every need will meet itself in perfect time. Now, having seen how purpose keeps the current of prosperity alive and unbroken, we must turn to the final practice that secures it with the daily maintenance of the miracle mindset, the art of remaining in the vibration of abundance so that your good not only comes, but stays, grows, and overflows to bless the world around you. Let us step now into the closing revelation, the miracle mindset, maintenance plan. There comes a moment, after all the declarations have been spoken, after the demonstrations have appeared, when the soul must learn the quiet art of sustaining its heaven. It is one thing to receive a blessing, another to remain in the consciousness that created it. The outer good that you hold in your hands today will endure only as long as the vibration that drew it remains alive within you. This is the final and greatest lesson, that prosperity is not an event but a state of being, not a windfall but a way of walking through life. You are never finished with the law. You are continually living it, breathing it, becoming it. Every thought, every tone of feeling, every word you speak either renews or diminishes your connection to the current of supply. The mind that understands this no longer prays for miracles, it maintains them. Each morning, as I open my eyes, before the world begins to speak its noise, I claim the day as divine. I speak softly to the stillness, "Infinite Spirit, this is your day. Flow through me in perfect order." Those words are my compass. They remind me that I am not the doer but the channel. I walk through the hours not to get, not to guard, but to give, to be the transparency through which love, peace, and provision shine. When a task confronts me, I say, "Christ within me does this work easily and perfectly." When a need arises, I whisper, "Supply appears now, under grace." And when the mind grows restless, as every human mind sometimes does, I return to silence and breathe the one truth that heals all disturbance. Be still and know. This is the maintenance of the miracle mindset, living as though every moment is an answered prayer. Gratitude is the oil that keeps the gears of abundance turning smoothly. I practice it deliberately. I thank God for the food before me, for the breath within me, for the opportunities I do not yet see but which are already forming in the unseen. The act of thanking in advance keeps the subconscious impressed with expectancy. Gratitude keeps the door open, complaint closes it. I have learned that to guard one's words is to guard one's wealth. Idle talk of lack, gossip, or criticism lowers the vibration and slows the flow. So I speak only what I wish to multiply. When I bless, life blesses me back. At midday, when the mind begins to drift toward the worries of the world, I pause for a moment to renew the rhythm of truth. I might walk a few steps and say, "God goes before me." Every path is prepared, every door is open. I remind myself that all appearances are only passing shadows and that divine order governs even the smallest detail. These small pauses are like breaths for the soul, they keep the inner climate clear. You need not spend hours in meditation. A single sincere thought aligned with love can correct the whole day. At night, before sleep, I release the day entirely. I do not carry its burdens into the silence. I lay them down as a traveler lays aside his pack at the end of the road. I forgive any misunderstanding, bless anyone who crossed my path, and say, "I cast this day into the hands of infinite love and wisdom." All is well. Then I close my eyes and drift into that luminous rest where the subconscious is recharged with divine ideas. Sleep is not an absence of activity. It is the silent workshop where tomorrow's miracles are built. Those who go to sleep in fear wake to confusion, but those who fall asleep in faith awaken to opportunity. To maintain the miracle mindset is to live consciously, joyfully, deliberately. It is to treat your thoughts as sacred instruments, to use your words as wands of power, to walk the earth as one who knows heaven is within. The maintenance is simple but demanding because it requires vigilance. You must choose again and again to return to faith when appearances tempt you to doubt. You must choose to forgive instead of resent, to bless instead of complain, to rest instead of strain. The more often you choose rightly, the more automatic it becomes. Eventually, truth becomes your default condition, and miracles your daily normal. There is one more secret I will share with you. When the mind is aligned with spirit, joy becomes the natural vibration of the soul. Joy is not the effect of things going well, it is the cause of things going well. To maintain the miracle mindset, you must cultivate joy not as a reward but as a practice. Sing, even if no one hears you. Smile, even if no one smiles back. Do something each day that lifts your heart, even if it seems trivial. Joy is the frequency of God's own being, and when you live in it, you draw to yourself every form of good. Joy is magnetic gold. I tell my students to imagine themselves as lighthouses of prosperity. Each morning, they polish their glass, clearing away fear and doubt so that the light can shine unobstructed. They do not chase ships to rescue them. They simply stand and shine, knowing that the right ones will find their way. That is how you maintain the miracle mindset. You do not chase your blessings, you radiate the consciousness that attracts them. You do not demand, you declare. You do not strain, you stand. If ever you feel yourself slipping into worry, remember that you are never far from peace. One declaration spoken with faith can restore the entire atmosphere of your mind. Say aloud, I am centered in the light of divine love. Nothing and no one can disturb the calm peace of my soul. Speak it until you feel it. Speak it until the wind of anxiety dies down and you can hear again the still small voice that has guided you from the beginning. Now let us affirm this truth together, to seal it into the deepest part of your being. I live in a constant state of miracle consciousness. I think truth, I speak faith, I walk in peace. Every morning I awaken to divine supply, every evening I rest in divine security. I am sustained, supported, and surrounded by infinite love. The miracles of God are my daily bread, and I give thanks that they never cease. Pause, breathe, and feel that rhythm within you, the rhythm of faith that sustains every miracle. That steady heartbeat of gratitude and trust is the true maintenance of the mind in Christ consciousness. Once you have established it, you will find that even in moments of chaos, a calm wisdom governs you, and your life unfolds in a harmony too perfect to be planned. So remember this as you go forward. Miracles are not occasional, they are the natural order of a mind aligned with God. You were not meant to live from crisis to crisis, but from grace to grace, from glory to glory. Keep your inner altar clean, your thoughts bright, your heart generous, your faith steady. Let every day be a quiet yes to the infinite. Then your world will never cease to overflow, for you will have learned to live, not merely to receive abundance, but to be abundance itself. And now, as this great teaching draws to its close, let us turn to the final seal, the summary of truth, the living affirmation that gathers all these laws into one radiant declaration of peace and power. And now, beloved, we have come to the quiet summit of this journey. We have walked together through the laws and the language of prosperity, through the unseen banks of heaven, through the power of the spoken word, through the laws of substitution and non-resistance, through the dissolving of fear, debt, and resentment, and into the living flow of gratitude and purpose. We have climbed step by step from the valley of appearance to the high places of realization, where supply is not something we reach for, but something that breathes through us. Here, on this mount of illumination, I say to you, the words that turn any ATM into a money fountain are not secret syllables, not formulas to manipulate matter, but the living words of consciousness that declare, I and my supply are one. When that realization becomes the percent, the pulse of your being, every bank, every opportunity, every encounter, every circumstance becomes your servant, because the world must mirror the mind that knows its union with God. In this higher consciousness, you do not command by effort, you radiate by certainty. You do not plead, you pronounce. You do not pray as a beggar, you speak as an heir. For you have learned that the kingdom of heaven is not a place to reach. It is the vibration of being that you already are. You are the living word of abundance. Every syllable of truth that you have spoken through these teachings has been recorded in the infinite ledger of law, and it cannot return void. Even now, unseen currents are moving, unseen doors are unlocking, unseen channels are opening, carrying to you the manifestation of the words you have sown. You have called forth divine substance, and it is answering. You have lifted your vision, and heaven has revealed itself through the substance of your everyday life. Pause now and feel that truth. Breathe it as though it were the air that sustains you, for indeed it is. The same breath that fills your lungs fills the universe. The same intelligence that directs the stars directs your affairs. The same love that moves the tides moves your money, your opportunities, your good. You are not separated from this love. You are a wave upon its sea. Each time you speak a word of faith, you ripple that ocean. Each time you affirm abundance, you shape its waves into form. The law is exact, but it is also merciful, for it responds not to the fear of yesterday, but to the faith of this very moment. Right now, in this instant, you can rewrite your entire life by claiming your oneness with divine supply. Say it with me softly, as if your voice were the whisper of the infinite speaking through human lips. Infinite Spirit, open the way for great abundance for me. I am an irresistible magnet for all that belongs to me by divine right. What is mine cannot be lost, what is not, mine cannot be held. All things move in divine order now. Let those words rest in you until they begin to hum like a living chord. That hum is the vibration of creation itself. The outer world will soon catch up to its rhythm. You will see doors open without effort, checks arrive without asking, healing come without struggle, and joy bloom without reason. This is not magic, this is law. And now that you know it, you can never again pretend to be powerless. You are the Word made flesh. You are the channel of God's inexhaustible supply. Remember always that you maintain your wealth not by force but by flow. Keep gratitude alive in your heart. Speak blessings upon every form of money that passes through your hands. Treat your work as a sacrament, your home as an altar, your words as wands. Refuse to speak lack even in jest. Refuse to bow to fear even in appearance. When the world trembles, stand still and know. When conditions shift, remember that truth never does. When you seem to lose, declare substitution. When you face resistance, bless it into non-resistance. When you fear delay, rest in divine timing. When you feel burdened, cast it on the Christ within. When you see debt, call it illusion. When you feel resentment, forgive. When you need strength, remember that joy is your power. And when you wonder what to do, listen inward. For the voice of your divine purpose will always tell you where to go. This is the way to live in permanent supply. Not through striving or calculation, but through constant communion with divine law. The ATM may stand as a symbol, but the true fountain of money, of energy, of life is within. You need not touch a screen to draw from it. You need only speak the word. Every time you say, God is my supply, you are pressing the sacred code that releases the current. Every affirmation of faith is a withdrawal from the invisible account of heaven. And unlike the accounts of earth, this one never diminishes. It is replenished by use, multiplied by circulation, magnified by gratitude. Before I close, I ask you to say this with me one final time, not as repetition but as realization. I am rich in mind, body, and affairs. Infinite supply flows to me and through me, under grace, in perfect ways. Every day is a day of abundance, every breath a breath of plenty, every thought a thought of peace. I live in the rhythm of divine order, and I rejoice, for the law is fulfilled. Take a deep breath and let silence follow. That silence is sacred. It is the still point where God and man are one. In that stillness, your new life has already begun. Walk forward now as one who knows. Look at the world through eyes washed clean of fear, and you will see prosperity everywhere, flowing in rivers, growing in gardens, shining in faces, and resting quietly in your own hands. You have discovered the secret that saints and sages have whispered through the ages. That heaven is not distant, that supply is not apart, that the word is the bridge between the seen and the unseen. So go, and live as the word made manifest. Speak blessings into your affairs, and they will bless you. Speak love into your relationships, and they will heal you. Speak wealth into your world, and it will enrich you. Do not wait for miracles. Be the miracle. Stand before the ATM of life and know that every request already has its answer, every need already its provision, every prayer already its fulfillment. For the law is alive, and it has heard you. And now I leave you in the peace of divine completion. The river flows, the doors are open, the word is spoken, and it is done under grace, in perfect ways.